Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of December 28th, 2021. It's the last week of the year. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas, if that's what you celebrate. Happy Hanukkah, Crazy Kwanzaa. I don't know what the saying is, but yeah, it was good Christmas around here. Got a big fat smoker from my wife. That's not a euphemism. It's literally a big giant smoker to smoke meats and whatnot. So happy about that. How was your Christmas, Rocky?
It was good. Good. I got a nice big leather duffel bag that I needed for just for travel and for back and forth to the office. Was My wife finally searched and found one that was economical because they're kind of pricey. So she's good at finding a good deal. So yeah,
Nice.
I got that, and yeah, a lot of bottles and alcohol and chocolate and food. So it was good. It was good. I can't complain.
Cool deal.
Yeah.
And also the listeners got something for me. I want to thank everybody for making this month, December 2021, the biggest month in terms of downloads for the Comic Source podcast. I was not expecting that.
Nice.
Appreciate that. This last August, we had some pretty big and popular interviews that kind of set the record. I didn't think I would approach that record again soon, but basically, I think it's validation, Rocky, that our plan next year for the Spawn Daily show is in good hands. People seem to really respond to the 12 Days of Spawnmas and want more Spawn. So
All right.
we're happy to bring that to you. As I said on social media recently, a day without Spawn is like a day without sunshine. And I'm sure the Todd father, Todd McFarlane, would agree. So look for that in the first of the year. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, we're here to talk about DC Comics today, though. You know, I was thinking about this. I may or may not have mentioned it previously on the show, but typically, as we wind down toward the end of the year, last couple weeks, what used to be Wednesdays, but now I guess Tuesdays and Wednesdays of the year tend to be a little bit smaller, a little break on the pocketbook, a lot of stuff going on, not a lot of books, but that's not the case this year with DC. I think we had 13 books last week. I think there's 17 or 18 today. Let's see, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, 15 books today. So,
Yeah.
yeah, DC is definitely not giving us a break at all. But overall, I wasn't really impressed with the books this week. I felt like a lot of the books this week were a little hard to follow. I mean, it's almost, maybe it's because I have so much going on in my brain with the holiday stuff that I'm not remembering what's going on before, but I felt like I was sort of confused by a lot of the narratives and things that were going on. I had to stop and think, like, wait, what happened in the last issue? I don't know. Things just didn't flow real smoothly for me between previous issues and these issues this week. Not that it was a bad week, and there's some spectacular art, but I don't know. I found myself confused by a lot of these stories, and that's not typically the case. How did you feel, Rocky? It was just me.
Well, well, I
You can say it was just me. It's fine.
well, I actually, I maybe it is just you. I've been enjoying most of it. I will admit, still being a little bit lost with Teen Titans Academy, but the rest I felt good about. Like I had generally a fairly good feeling about most of this stuff. I really enjoyed Swamp Thing, Green Hell, um, so yeah, so I generally had a good time with it. I think I continued to enjoy DC for the most part, and I'm not completely lost, although I do have some concerns moving forward. But we'll see. I think I know where you're coming from though, because in a sense that there's this feeling with DC that as much as they're kind of headed in a certain direction, sometimes it's not entirely clear if the right hand knows what the left hand is doing at DC in terms of the overall narrative approach of the entire line. So sometimes I end up scratching my head trying to see if they have a larger game plan in motion here, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case when it comes to the next Batman.
Yeah.
We've talked about that in the past. But anyway, let's kick it off with Action Comics number 1038. This is from writer Philip Kennedy Johnson. Miguel Mondoka is taking over as a regular artist. Adriana Lucas on colors, Dave Sharp on letters. We recently saw Miguel's work on the the last JLA story, which was absolutely fantastic. He has a similar sensibility to Daniel Sampier, so I think he's a good choice to take it over. That being said, his art is different enough from Daniel's that you certainly notice it. But I think he's done a fantastic job. Um, and it's sort of interesting. There's not a whole heck of a lot of action. The first couple of pages it's nothing but action. Some very kinetic looking scenes, basically, as one of Superman's teammates. I don't even remember what her name is. She was Leah's buddy who went along and joined the Authority. She breaks out, and there's some pretty great action scenes from Miguel. As far as the majority of the story, yeah, it's sort of not a lot happens. A little bit of setup, um, or a lot of bit of setup, I guess I should say. And I have sort of mixed feelings. I know that Philip Kennedy Johnson is trying to give us a feel of this being this epic story. Um, and I never thought I would find myself agreeing with Midnighter so much, but yet I do. He was one of the few of the Authority that didn't get captured and or killed. Um, and he actually goes to break Superman out. And Superman's like, no, I can't leave. I have to free all these people. Being that you are at a weakened state, Superman, and members of your team have all been either killed or captured, I think in this case, discretion is the better part of valor. And I 100% agree with you that these people need to be rescued. Maybe go back to Earth and get an army to come back. Get your friends, get Supergirl, get Batman to come up with a plan. Again, not to play script doctor, because then there would be no story, right? I'm defeating the whole purpose of what Philip Kennedy Johnson here is doing, but this doesn't ring very true to me. Um, and the fact that it had to start with sort of the whole plot point, which was planted way back in the very first issue that Philip Kennedy Johnson wrote, that this is a Superman that's underpowered, right? Because the true Superman, this wouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, we've seen Superman fight Mongol plenty of times. Yes, Mongol is a threat and one of the more powerful villains that Superman fights, but at the end of the day, a fully powered Superman against Mongol, Superman's going to win. And so in order to make this work, and so it's like, okay, I'll buy that. For whatever reason, there's some radiation sickness or whatever, Superman's being depowered. Okay, I'll buy that. But now I got to buy the fact that Superman's not smart enough to say, yeah, I need to leave and come back. It's
Yeah.
all these things are sort of piling up. In order to make this story work, there's all these conditions, and it's getting to be a little much for me. So I don't know. Jury's still out. Like I said, I have mixed feelings. The art, I don't have mixed feelings about. The art is absolutely fantastic. Adriano Lucas colors work very, very well. Um, for speculators, I know Rocky, you always like to call it out. There's a new character that we're introduced to here, um, Krelux, who seems like, just based on the fact of how he's presented when he shows up on the page, how he gets his own sort of panel with no background to sort of make him stand out. I feel like he's somebody that's important or will be important going forward. So that's probably somebody to pay attention to. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the best thing I can say is I'm just not sure. Mixed feelings. I want to like it more than I do. Just Kennedy Johnson's just asking me to he's just asking me to buy in a little bit too much. One thing, okay, two things, okay. Now it's like three and four things in order to make the story work, and it's kind of becoming a little hard to swallow. But then again, it's a book about a guy who can fly and shoot laser beams from his eyes. So what the hell? Of course, it's hard to buy. So I don't know. You probably enjoyed it more than me, I'm guessing.
Well, I enjoyed. I like the depowering. I think at least where I come from in terms of enjoying this story is that I actually like the depowering because it. I like the fact that this is the Mongol who is, not the Mongol who was, and he's more intelligent. I mean, he's more tactical. He's more strategic. He's utilizing a red sun to depower Superman and to kill him, and then to keep him alive, and just sort of keep Superman alive enough to continue to torture him, and to say to all the Theologians and all his slaves that are under him. I have Superman, and I have Superman in chains, and this is your hero. This is your would-be savior. And look at the fate that befalls anyone that would dare defy Mongol, who is. And he's toying with Superman and keeping him alive with a little dose of maybe yellow sun, and then probably with the red sun to kill him. And by the way, I'm factoring in some of what we saw in Future State. In that Future State issue where we got glimpses of Superman as a gladiator, he was killed in the Future State issues, and he seemed to be imply that he was killed and resurrected and killed and came back, because Mongol kept killing him and bringing him back, killing him and bringing him back to kill him again in the gladiatorial arena. And you make a good point about where I kind of agree with you that I don't quite agree with Superman staying there. Like when Midnighter is literally there. I mean, Midnighter is a fantastic fighter. It makes sense that Midnighter would be the one guy to escape, and he can actually take Superman with him. Why wouldn't Superman leave with him and go and plan and go get the Justice League? As if the Justice League wouldn't come back with Superman. I mean, right now Bendis has the Justice League battling the Royal Flush Gang. I mean, give me a break. I mean, the Royal Flush Gang's not a priority right now. I realize continuity is a little wonky right now in the DC universe and coordinating all these titles, but seriously, but that's not PKJ's fault. The writer Philip Kennedy Johnson here, he's doing a good job of making this a uniquely Superman story. And frankly, I kind of don't want the Justice League in it. I remember John Byrne's Superman when he was on Warworld back in the late 80s there. I love that run. It's a classic story. This very much has sort of like a Russell Crowe gladiator feel to it. And in that respect, maybe some readers might, and maybe yourself, Jace, maybe feel that's a little bit tropey, maybe, but I'm kind of enjoying it, and I kind of like this Superman here. He's got something to come back from and something to prove. And given the fact that we have a lot of controversy and a lot of, I would say, sort of, I think, uncomfortable subjects when we talk about Superman, son of Kal-El. I mean, that's a comic book that seems to be controversial. It's a very different type of comic book. This is classic Superman coming back. And I love it. And you said it with the art. Mandonka's art is absolutely fantastic. We got a new character, Krelux. This here, I'm really curious to see where this is going. And I love the fact that I don't know what to expect with the other members of the Authority. The fact that I'm not as familiar with these other members of the Authority. I'm familiar with Apollo and Manchester Black, I guess, but I like that they bring very different things to the table. And because they're a little bit more prone to use lethal force, and Mongol is clearly raising the ante by killing, I really like where I see this might be headed. And the real test here is the Authority going to be able to continue to help Superman and not violate their code against killing, which they promised Superman they wouldn't do? Is Superman going to be able to maintain his own code against killing to win at the end of the day? And I suspect he will, but I'm prepared to give PKJ the benefit of the doubt here, because so far I really like this story that he's weaving.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. It does have a very Superman feel. And one thing, so when Superman was on Warworld in the late 80s, it was actually Roger Stern who was on the title at that point, not John Byrne. But
I apologize.
John Byrne, yeah, but John Byrne was the reason why it happened, because John Byrne was the one that had Superman kill the Phantom Zone criminals in that alternate dimension,
right?
Where
Yeah.
the proto Supergirl was. Then Byrne left the title, and the editors are like, there has to be consequences because Byrne had Superman kill these people, and Superman doesn't kill, and that's what led to Superman having this mental breakdown and eventually caused him to exile himself. Which, yeah, I love that story. Exile is one of my favorite Superman stories of all time by Stern, and this is borrowing from that quite a bit, and that is probably coloring my outlook on it a little bit. I've said before it's been done before and better, but you're right. I mean, this does have a very Superman feel, and you're also right about the Mongol, who is being very much more kind of cunning than the Mongol who was. The whole idea that his world is powered by red suns, because not only is it weakening Superman, it needs to be there because it weakens the Theologians, who maybe don't even realize that if they're under a yellow sun, they'd have powers, right? Like we saw when I can't remember her name now, the Theologian that went to Earth.
Theola.
Yeah, Theola, right? Theola, exactly. So So yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. Like I said, mixed feelings, but I mean I am enjoying this more than any of the Bendis stuff. I'll say that. And there is a backup also. Martian Manhunter, A Face in the Crowd Part 2 from writer Sean Aldridge. Adriano Mello handles the art, Hi-Fi on colors, Dave Sharp on letters. This is one of those where, like I said, I'm not. It's not that I'm confused because not that much happened last time, but I don't know the point. We're 2 parts in, and I don't know the point of the story yet. I don't know. It's maybe it's because it's such a short. He only gets 8 pages. Martian Manhunter's got some new civilian identity, I think, that we're not necessarily privy to yet, and he goes hunting for an artifact for some reason in a museum, and ends up being attacked there by um, a new human flame, and we do find out his origins. And
Yep.
then Martian Manhunter ends up meeting a little girl outside who maybe is more than she appears. She calls herself Zook. Um,
Yeah.
and she's like, yeah, I've been expecting you. This is on my patrol. Like, what? She looks like a little 8-year-old girl. So yeah, again, not sure what to expect. Not sure what the point of the story is yet. So it's a little, I don't want to say off-putting, but like I'm not invested yet. And I know it's a challenge with only 8 pages, but I, I hate to point to Ram V again, his Justice League Dark, but he does a great job in a limited amount of pages. So it is possible that it can be done. Um, but it's not. This is not hooking me. Like I don't know why I'm supposed to care yet about this story.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm not really sure where the story is going, although I am intrigued a bit from it. Uh, I notice again, Adriano Mello's art is actually quite good here. I like the art. I actually like her art better here than I do when she's drawing for Wonder Girl. When she's trying to copy Joelle Jones' style, but I like it here, and I'm curious to know who this Zook is. I'm actually Martian Manhunter has always been a character that I struggle to find interesting at times. I know that he had his 12 issue miniseries there that was written by Steve Orlando, but I think I actually kind of even enjoyed the story in that. Unfortunately, the art it had, I think a lot of people were turned off from it because of Riley Rosmo's art for Martian Manhunter. But even though I thought it was quite good. But Martian Manhunter it's good to see the human flame. It harkens back to Flame was the one who played a role in the death of Martian Manhunter and leading into Infinite Crisis. So maybe this is going to be playing a role and leading somehow into that as well. You never know. We're going to be reviewing Deathstroke Incorporated #4 this week as well, where Libra is sort of rising, and then Libra, of course, worked with Darkseid during leading into Final Crisis. Sorry, but so again, we'll see where all this leads. It's we sort of talked about before how some of this stuff maybe it is its own continuity, but maybe it's leading to something larger. It's hard to say, and you know it can be a little bit frustrating maybe piecing this all together. We'll have to see where it leads.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's move on. DC versus Vampires #3 is up next from writer James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg. Art, color, and main cover by Otto Schmidt. Letters are by Tom Napolitano. We have a variant cover by Francesco Mattina. And we know we saw last issue ended with Green Lantern killing Flash, which was pretty shocking. And this issue picks up with the Justice League finding Flash's body and beginning an investigation. So, what were your thoughts on this, Rocky?
Just a moment here. This one I got to give credit to Tinian and Rosenberg here. I didn't expect this story to go in the direction that it did. I really like I really liked how they're setting Batman up. How Green Lantern, Hal Jordan as a vampire is a devious bastard. I mean, of course, we saw what he did with Zan, with half of that Wonder Twin there. with Gave him a nice little blender and made a water juice out of him, and then it ends up killing Barry Allen. And we know that Batman is aware that the vampires are slowly trying to take over the earth or infiltrating the heroes and the villains. But Batman's not leading it on because Batman's Batman. We know from last issue, Batman has advised the other members of the Batman family as to what his suspicions are and what's going on. And Batman is keeping some things close to the chest. He still has a vial of Lex Luthor's blood. Meanwhile, they're all doing and they're investigating, and per Jan, she's looking for her brother, and there's some heartfelt moments here that are I feel sorry as much as I rejoice with Zan being killed in an egregious manner because I'm a sick bastard. I actually felt sorry for Jan when she realizes what became of her brother when Batman and her discover basically him basically having been liquefied. And it's sad here. It is, but we have some great moments between Nightwing and Barbara Gordon, and it's going to be interesting if a lot of this stuff, if it's ultimately revealed that Barbara Gordon or Nightwing are actually a vampire. There's a lot of effective misdirection that I'm quite certain Rosenberg or Tinian are probably incorporating into this story, and I suspect we're going to get a lot more surprises as this narrative continues, and I'm really looking forward to it. I quite like this. I thought this particular issue had some emotional moments, some gravitas to it. I love how Batman is, this is the detective. This is Batman utilizing his detective skills, keeping things under wraps, and doing what he has to find out the information. Unfortunately for him, unbeknownst to him, the Penguin is ultimately ends up being confronted by Zatanna, who's a vampire, and Wonder Woman unfortunately ends up being compromised by Green Lantern, and they ultimately report back to the Justice League that Batman is a vampire. So they're turning on Batman. What better way to take out? I mean, that you got to take out the Justice League's the world's best detective, and that's exactly what the vampires are doing. And it's well done. I quite enjoy the dialogue here, and Tinian and Rosenberg both understand these characters. I thought they handled Wonder Woman's voice quite well when she confronted Hal Jordan about the way that he was responding to Barry being killed, and ultimately he manages to hypnotize Diana, which I thought was interesting. I'm a little bit surprised that he was able to do that because the magic lasso usually with a connection to the magic lasso gives Wonder Woman a connection to the truth. There's different iterations and interpretation of the magic lasso, but in this particular case, it seems to backfire. That the lasso, once it's wrapped around Hal Jordan, who is in fact a vampire, it seems to have an opposite effect. It actually makes Wonder Woman vulnerable to Hal Jordan's vampire hypnosis, which I think is kind of convenient. I think that's a little bit. I would think the mythological aspects of Wonder Woman's magic lasso could overcome the hocus pocus of vampirism, but I guess I'll accept that just for the story because it makes it interesting because clearly then Wonder Woman and Hal Jordan end up trying to set up and frame Batman, and it's this is interesting. I'm quite enjoying this. It's 12 issues long. It's a self-contained story. It's fun. This is we know that there's going to be stakes, probably literally stakes shoved into probably people's various heroes and villains' hearts. And again, I this is one of my favorite titles this week. I quite enjoyed it. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't like it as much as you did. To be clear, when after Wonder Woman has been hypnotized, which I agree with you, didn't have a ring of truth to it. Kind of lacks some verisimilitude. But when they go in, they don't necessarily say Batman's a vampire because, again, remember, it's still a secret that these vampires, for most people, the Bat family knows, obviously, but for most of the Justice League, they don't know the vampires are moving against humanity. But what they do say is, they discover Wonder Woman says, we discovered that Batman was the one that killed Barry Allen. So
Right.
yes, they are still blaming Batman for everything, but not necessarily saying he's a vampire because again, they still don't know. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. The only thing I could think about Hal Jordan being able to somehow hypnotize Wonder Woman while he's tied up with the lasso is that that episode of Seinfeld where George is trying to teach Jerry how to beat a lie detector, and he says, "Remember, Jerry, it's not a lie if you believe it." And so Hal Jordan is definitely believing what he's saying here about, the vampires being overdue to be in charge and that sort of thing. And when he says to Wonder Woman how they can live forever and life's great on the other side, you know
Right.
hypnosis doesn't lie. Your lasso and my ring are just crutches. The real power is the tools that we have at our disposal because we're vampires. It's greater power inside of me, blah blah blah. So yeah, it did sort of surprise me that was able to happen. But like you said, I don't know how. I'll accept it for the story's sake because I don't know how they proceed if Wonder Woman. I mean, maybe they can take out Wonder Woman. Maybe they can take out Superman. Can they take out both if they're on the same side? That seems really unlikely. I mean, I don't know how they're going to take out Superman. I mean, that is a kryptonite something or other. I got to think at this point because you would think Superman would be able to do something with solar and wipe these vampires out pretty quickly. So, but yeah, I mean, it is a lot of fun, even though there are a few moments like that don't have you know that just don't feel that realistic in within the context of the DC universe. But you're right about Hal Jordan as well being pretty devious. We know he has super strong willpower. Maybe that contributes to him being able to have that vampiric hypnosis that's very traditionally a power of vampires be even more powerful. But yeah, some great moments, some great art. I really loved seeing Black Canary kick Damien's ass, which was fantastic, giving him a boot to the face like we've all wished we could do to Damien at various times.
Yeah.
So I did appreciate that. But so you're right. I mean, this is fun. It's out of continuity. It's a little out of context, but um, in the end, I think Batman will come up with a way to save the day because he's Batman, and he
Well,
seems to.
Batman did discover that the blade that killed Zan was made not of metal but of light. So I'm
Yeah,
sure he's going to
he
connect it
knows.
to Green Lantern. So
Yeah, I think he already knows that it's Hal, and certainly once the Justice League confronts him and blames him for Flash's death, he's going to put two and two together and know immediately. So yeah, you're right, and there are great moments. Jaina learning about her brother, just a little tip of a finger is all that's left of him. The interaction between Roy Harper and Black Canary and Oliver Queen. Yeah, there are bits of humor, and as dark as this comic is, so it certainly works on that level. All right, up next we have Aquaman: The Becoming #4. Uh, this is from writer Brandon Thomas. We have pencils by Scott Koblish. Inks are by Wayne Von Grobiger. And the colors are by Adriana Lucas. So this is one of those books that I was talking about where I sort of feel lost a little bit. We're getting a lot of information thrown at us all at once, and I'm just not sure. Oh, and I realized I didn't say who the letterist was. Android Design does the letters. Um, so yeah, I think, and I don't blame Brandon Thomas necessarily because we're talking about a character that has decades and decades of history and it's changed over time based on what matters and what doesn't, and DC's changed their history and their continuity at various times. So it becomes a little tough sometimes to keep track of Zabel and what their history is and their relationship to Atlantis. I mean, I think they've always started out as a penal colony. That's always been their history, a penal colony of Atlantis. But now we're learning more about that and about the rulers of Zabel and more about Jackson Hyde's um, ancestry. What things that his mother has done, and we learned last issue that he has a sister. But now we learned about his stepfather. So I mean, it it becomes a little convoluted and a little hard to follow, right? Like trying to squeeze all this stuff in because you want to tell the right story, and different creators have done different things. And Jackson Hyde, they wanted that aspect of him. Okay, he's Black Manta's son, so you because it makes him, some writer at some point thought that makes him more interesting, right? That he's a hero, but he has a villain as a son. He is the new Aquaman, but yet Aquaman's arch foe is his father. But then they wanted him to have a mother that was from Zabel, but then they wanted her to have a daughter, but then it can't be the same. It doesn't make sense to have Black Manta be her father, so now you got to introduce a second. It's like, so Jackson Hyde's mom gets around, I guess, is what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
again,
Uh,
it just really starts getting convoluted to make all this make sense. And then when you add in the politics of it, and it's like who's on the right side, who's on the wrong side, it's all a matter of perspective. And it sort of becomes this situation where, much like I was saying with Action Comics, where you're expected to buy in, to A and then B and then C to make the story work, it starts to feel like it's a little bit much, right? When I have a really hard time where in stories where there's some sort of situation that only happens because people just don't tell each other what's going on, right? It's like an episode of Three's Company. I can sum up every episode of Three's Company for you. And for those of you that are young, Three's Company is a sitcom from the early 80s. Every episode of Three's Company can be summed up by saying, there was a misunderstanding. And there's always a misunderstanding because one person overhears something, takes it out of context, and doesn't bother to go back to the people that are talking and ask for clarification. And that's sort of what's happening here. There's all these different factions. You've got the Atlanteans, you've got the Zabellians, you've got um, Jackson Hyde's mom, you've got Jackson Hyde's mom's mentor, and that are part of a rebellion, and they haven't all agreed with what each other has done at various times, and it just becomes this whole game of telephone where people aren't open and say, okay, this is what I think, this is why I'm going to do what I'm doing, this is the choice that I'm making, whatever. And instead it just becomes this convoluted mess because people are just off doing their own thing and nobody's talking to each other. I have a hard time with stories like that because that's not real life, right? I mean,
yeah.
so it gets a little convoluted. So I mean, hopefully when this is all said and done, and I'll sit down and read all the issues together, it won't be as confusing as it is. I want to like this. Um, this is the first issue we've had with Scott Koblish on pencils. Scott Koblish, his line, it's not even necessarily his line weights because typically his line weights are usually medium, and it's usually heavy line weights, I feel, that lead to static art. But for whatever reason, I'm not a big Scott Koblish fan in terms of what he's able to do for transitions from panel to panel and sense of movement. His images always come across as very static to me, which is a big problem, especially when you're having fight scenes underwater. So I'm not a fan of Scott's art here. There's nothing technically wrong with it, but I just didn't feel that the story flowed, especially in the middle when there's a big fight scene underwater, where it should feel very fluid. I just don't think Scott's the best choice for that. But the colors are very good, and I can't fault the art from a technical standpoint in terms of anatomy or panel layouts or anything. It just, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the line weights or the character acting. It wasn't the best for me. So, what do you think of this one, Rocky?
I think that there was a lot of action. I was a little taken aback by how much information was crammed in this issue. There's a lot of exposition, a lot of information, a lot of history, a lot of new history. One of the things that we've talked about in the weeks leading up to this with Aquaman the Becoming and with Black Manta is that clearly DC is they're building and expanding the mythology of Aquaman, just like they're trying to expand the mythology of the Amazons with Wonder Woman, Wonder Girl, and Nubia of the Amazons. And uh, I think that uh, I do think that both with Wonder Woman and with Aquaman, I think there's some issues. I think there's it's a little bit wonky. I think the mythology in Wonder Woman, I like Nubia and the Amazons, but I think that the narrative in Wonder Girl and I think it it's wanting. And in Wonder Woman, I think that there's a lack of cohesiveness there. And unfortunately, with Black Manta, I think the story in Black Manta is not clear at all, and the art is not up to task. Uh, and at least here with Aquaman the Becoming, it is more clear. The narrative is more clear. There's a lot here, and we're getting a lot of it crammed into just one issue. Which we could have probably built up in the previous two issues, but I I enjoy this. I love the art. I really wish we had this level of art for Black Manta. I like the history that's being built here. I think Brandon Thomas is, you know, I think he's maybe crammed a little bit too much information in one issue, but I like this. We're getting uh, uh, Jackson Hyde's sister Delilah. She's the daughter of Elak Enego. Another, you know, I'm not too big on names that I always struggle with, but Elak Enego is her father, and Jackson Hyde's father is Black Manta, and Black Manta has a connection with the Zebels, and clearly now it looks as if we're building toward what could be a war between Zebel and Atlantis, or at least somebody's trying to create, I think, a false flag operation to sort of blame Jackson Hyde, uh, and maybe try to create a war between Zebel and Atlantis, and at the same time, Delilah, who is the daughter of Elak, who apparently was some very important person in Zebel. Uh, Apparently that's part of the machinations and the politics and the diplomacy and the intrigue and the espionage that's going on here. I'm not entirely clear exactly how all this ties in. I wish it was a little bit more clear myself, but you know, at least I will say at least it's more clear than in Black Manta. But I do think that I really do think that there should have been, you know, if I'm being, I mean, I hate to be, I want to cut with a spoon and not a knife when I say this, but editorially, Aquaman is a little bit of a mess. Aquaman the Becoming, in conjunction with Black Manta, and the Wonder Woman titles are just the Amazonian titles. It's just messy. It should be more coherent. It should be a little bit more clear. But at least with this Aquaman the Becoming, the art's really good, and I think it is much easier to understand than Black Manta. But how do all these connect? That's not clear yet to me, but we'll have to wait and see. I really hope this clears up, because this is supposed to be at some point leading into Aquaman, which is the event Aquaman, and with Black Manta being a little bit of a narrative mess, and this Aquaman the Becoming being much more, you know, more clear, but it's unclear how this is all connected. I think that for readers coming in, especially if you want to attract new readers, this isn't going to do it. I hate to say it. You and I are longtime readers, and we have the patience, and we review this, and but I just fear that it's gonna be lost on a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with you about the level of art as well. You know, like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with this art. Just maybe it's not the best choice of artist. But yeah, I would take this on Black Manta all day over what we've had on there, for sure. I'd be enjoying that title much more. But yeah, it's like you said. There's just so much information crammed in here, and a lot of it's new, and it's sort of going back and changing or adding a lot to Aquaman's history from back in the day. So it's a lot to take in. Up next, we have another Aquaman title. It's Aquaman Green Arrow Deep Target #3. This is also written by Brandon Thomas. We have Ronan Cliquet on art, Ulysses Areola on colors, and Josh Reed on letters. I'll talk about the art first. It's been fantastic throughout. Ronan Cliquet does a fabulous job of giving us a lot of action, really clean, traditional comic book art. The colors by Ulysses Areola are very primary, which sort of suit this kind of pseudo time traveling story and this half man, half dinosaur villain. Um, I'll credit Brandon Thomas for creating this sort of dual narrative through most of the book, where we're seeing the story through Aquaman's eyes. And by Aquaman, I'm talking about Oliver Queen and Green Arrow, Arthur Curry. Yeah, we get different perspectives as they're on different sides of the room, both captured. Um, but it's another one that doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. We're missing some sort of key information here, but it seems to be purposeful, at least in this sense. um, based on the fact that Aquaman and Green Arrow don't know 100% of what's exactly going on in terms of what these people who've built this time travel platform um, and have been using it for. We don't really know what their end goal is. So, we're given some clues here or there, but it hasn't been made clear, other than the fact that they're trying to manipulate things, and it is hinted at, if not outright said, that whatever has befallen Aquaman and Green Arrow in this sort of Freaky Friday switch that they've had to undergo, that this group, I don't think they've even given themselves a name, is sort of to blame for it, but somehow by traveling to Nanda Parbat, these guys managed to prevent any sort of disaster. Because even the powers that be, these people that have captured these two heroes, they don't even understand that, and that's why they've captured them. Like, we want to understand how you guys are able to switch lives. It sort of seems like this group is looking for ways to go back in time and enrich themselves, but also maybe go back in time at various key moments and prevent themselves being captured or caught, maybe prevent heroes from even being created at all. So it's an interesting sort of setup when you think about it like that. But at the same time, I sort of feel I haven't heard anybody talking about this title. So like, this could have been, when you think about it in terms of that, like, this evil group that has the ability to travel back through time and has this knowledge, and they could prevent, Bruce Wayne's parents from being murdered, prevent the Kents from finding the rocket that held baby Kal-El, like, stop all these things from happening to where the heroes wouldn't exist. That could be a huge story. That could be a giant DC universe spanning event that crosses over into many, many titles. So it's a fantastic idea from Brandon Thomas. But keeping it sort of limited to this series, and even though it's not necessarily a Black Label book because you're dealing with time travel or whatever, alternate timelines, I guess you don't necessarily have to say it's out of continuity. So there's a lot to like here, not least of which at the end, when they finally escape or think they've escaped, and then they realize that they're apparently on the surface of the moon. So this group, clearly has quite a bit of power and technology and know-how. So I'm sort of curious to see how it's all gonna wind up. But it can be a little convoluted, and I did appreciate the way that Brandon Thomas told the story, like I said, with those two narratives. But I could also see how it could be confusing for some people. What are your thoughts on this one, Rocky?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused myself. Although I'm not that confused. I get it. I mean, Nanda Parbat has always been a mysterious place, and so it's perfectly conceivable that if you're going to mix up technology and time travel, and you combine it with Nanda Parbat, I can imagine that. Yeah, it might create some, shenanigans where Aquaman lives Oliver Queen's life and vice versa, and they get mixed up in terms of their souls or whatever's going on here. I'm just I don't know, that there's a continuity side of me, is that I don't really know why this story needs to exist. It's like Oliver Queen and Aquaman, they don't have their own comic books, and so let's cram them into one, and then just to confuse people who want to see Aquaman, because Aquaman Arthur Curry doesn't have his own comic anymore. Let's cram them together and mix them up and confuse them because they both have blonde beards, or they both have blonde hair. It just this storyline is a little bit baffling to me. This new villain is an odd choice. I'm not sure. Is this going to be linked to Aquaman? Is this going to be like what? This is a very, very odd choice for a story in the middle of all the types of stories that could be told right now, and all the characters that the DC universe has to play with. This is a very, very odd choice of a story. Now, having said that, that's I haven't really reviewed it yet. So, I mean, as a story itself, it's interesting. I mean, I guess I'm kind of curious to see where this is going to go. Is it going to have any consequence? I agree with you that it's interesting that this sort of quasi-terrorist organization that has access to time travel, it opens up some interesting possibilities about maybe going back in time. No one exactly knows how this terrorist organization was created because they can sort of almost hide themselves in time. And if they figure out the secret in terms of how Arthur and Oliver mixed up their lives, they could really obviously control and create havoc for the heroes and villains, and they could pretty much control the destiny of everyone on the planet. So the potential consequences of this storyline are certainly huge. However, it just seems like, again, it just seems like an odd storyline to me. And like you said, nobody is talking about this storyline. I mean, nobody. And it's got a dinosaur talking, a human hybrid dinosaur is sort of the villain, or is he the villain? I'm not really sure yet. So this is, like I said, this is an odd title. It's not bad. It's 3 issues in. I'm entertained. The art's really good. And now they're on the moon, I guess. And so something's going on, but at the end of the day, I'd much rather opt for an Aquaman, Arthur Curry centered comic book and a Green Arrow comic. But maybe I'm old school. I don't know. But sorry about that. Your voice is off there. Your volume's down there, Jace.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I agree with you. I like both these characters. I like them separately. Although, I don't know, maybe this comic exists because the powers that be at DC are like, these guys look a lot alike. They're what's the only difference is the goatee. So I don't know. All right, well, let's move on. Teen Titans Academy is up next from writer Tim Sheridan. We have Mike Norton on art. Tom Dernick does the pencils and inks for pages 1 through 7, and then Mike Norton handles 8 through 22. Alex Sinclair, Jeremiah Skipper on colors, Rob Lee on letters. Yeah, Teen Titans Academy. What did you think, Rocky?
Yeah. Well, Tim Sheridan. I guess we get more Red X. I mean, last issue ended with Red X literally decapitating Simon, whose goal was to create a new Fearsome Five by recruiting various members of the Teen Titans Academy, and Red X sort of freaked out and literally ripped the head off Simon. And there was some, I think it was you who said there was some question as to whether or not, was Red X under some sort of mind control, or did Red X actually kill Simon? And in fact, it's revealed here that in fact, yes, Red X did in fact kill Simon. And here, in this issue, which is called the Book of Dane, all the background that we've sort of, those who've been reading this series so far since Future State, all the stuff all of it's finally coming to a head. This warning about Shazam and being in hell and releasing the unkindness, and ultimately Raven becoming possessed, and Dane being the I guess one of the sons or of the devil or some powerful satanic force. He's going to come into his own, and he's going to harbor in and be a harbinger of the apocalypse. All this is sort of coming to a head here finally, and this issue opens up with showing the birth of Dane, and then it shows Dane. And for some reason, when Dane left last issue, he decides to take Red X with him, and like, again, I don't think anyone's caring who Red X is anymore. At one point in this issue, which was kind of funny, Red X was actually going to take his mask off because he gets to hell, and I think he just wants his face to breathe. But Dane says, no, leave the mask on. That mask is your power. You should never give it up. Which is really a ridiculously stupid thing for Dane to say, because the mask isn't his power. And Red X says something curious. Red X says, I have other powers. And so, okay, so what other powers does Red X have? So maybe does the plot thicken a little bit? Seems a little bit forced there. What are the powers of Red X? Is he appears to be a student, and the other students of Titans Academy even say to Starfire, Nightwing, and Cyborg, particularly the character known as Stitch, the gender fluid character, she says, or they said that she she doesn't think that when they go after Red X that they should go and take Red X out, that they should, that they she kind of she's like the moral center of Teen Titans Academy. I mean, they obviously Raven and Changeling and Roy Harper, they want to go after Red X because he decapitated Simon, and so they kind of want to use, he's a murderer, and they want to go after him and potentially use aggressive force, potentially lethal force, even though they don't actually say that. And Stitch tries to, I don't know. Some of it seems a little bit like a little bit tropey, as if Stiff is going to lecture the older Titan members on tactics and on morality. I just thought it was kind of pathetic. I mean, Nightwing and Corey and Donna Troy and Raven and Changeling and Cyborg, they don't need a lecture on morality, and it seemed very forced. And it just seemed out of place to me. And, as far as the narrative itself, Shazam warns everyone about what the future might hold, which we know is coming in Future State. Shazam talks about, Black Adam Jr., and he alludes to where he's at in hell, and those who've been who've read the Shazam 4-issue miniseries will know how Black Adam Jr. came back. This is one, it actually makes sense. We've been following it, but for people that are just following this by just reading Teen Titans Academy, I'm sorry, but you're lost. I mean, you're going to be lost unless you've read Shazam, unless you've read the Future State issues. You're going to be lost here. And this issue doesn't really do a heck of a lot to make things particularly clear. I found Dane. I don't find Dane to be a particularly interesting character. I don't know why we need Dane in this comic, to be honest with you. I don't like the character. I don't like his conversation with Red X. Red X is a killer. I don't really, this sort of pathetic defense of Red X, even by Stitch, I just found it to be ridiculous. And even when Changeling comes around and says he agrees with Stitch about, no, Red X is a killer. I mean, treat him like the piece of garbage that he is. I mean, and go after him and use extreme force to do so. You don't have to kill him. No one's expecting the Titans to kill Red X, but certainly you're going to go after him. The exposition here, the dialogue and everything else, it feels a little bit, I felt a lot of it just seemed a little bit insulting and forced. It's like the students are teaching the teachers here, which is ridiculous. I mean, we've been subjected to how many issues of this, and we've never actually seen these students in a classroom. We've never actually seen them learn anything other than get into a bunch of misadventures and keep secrets from each other. And frankly, the secrets they're keeping from each other are potentially world-destroying secrets, which is another thing that's incredibly insane. And even with the teachers keeping the secret of who Red X is, and everything about this just seems absolutely sort of insane to me. I guess I'm sounding pretty hard when I'm talking about it. I guess I'm just, all this is building up in me, and I guess I'm venting a little bit here. I want this to be comic book to be more fun than frustrating. And I find it more frustrating than fun. And, and it ends with Neuron confronting Dane, and I'm not really sure. I mean, Neuron confronts Dane, and then when finally the Titans show up and Red X is there, I don't know why we're supposed to care. I'm not really sure. I'm actually hoping the unkindness shows up and kills everyone in this comic at this point. And I say that tongue in cheek, but it's just frustrating to me. It's about time this thing is over. And unfortunately, this ends on a cliffhanger with Dane being in this ball of hell surrounded containing demons, and he's in this ball, magical ball, and they're back in Titan's Tower, and it ends on that cliffhanger. And next issue is going to be part 1 of a new story arc called Expulsion. So this isn't going to end anytime soon, and I want it to. But I don't know. Are you as frustrated as I am, or am I too harsh?
No, I'm not I'm not really frustrated. I mean, any more frustrated than I was going in because we still we still don't know who Red X is. And yeah, it's getting past the time now, when you're doing dumbass things like you said with Dane saying, "No, no, don't take off your mask." I mean, now it's just getting to the point where it's ridiculous. Um, and Stitch even says, she confronts all these veteran Titans saying, "You know who's under the mask and you've been keeping it a secret." And they're like, "Well, yeah, maybe we do, maybe we don't." They won't fess up to it. But more so, I think Stitch, I don't know that they necessarily have a problem with the Titans wanting to bring Red X to justice. She has more of a problem with Dane, with what they're talking about lumping Dane in with Red X. They don't know who Red X is either. So even though once the other Titans sort of intimate that Red X is a student, because they say at that point, they say these students are fugitives, which implies they know who Red X is and they know Red X is a student there at the academy. Dane obviously being the other student, and they talk about bringing them both to justice. And Stitch is saying, well, hold on a second. Red X may be a murderer, but not Dane. And Donna Troy's, well, like, not yet, but we're hearing this prophecy from Raven. We're hearing this prophecy from Shazam, saying that it's Dane's the Antichrist, and these biblical events are about to come to pass, and it's going to be hell on earth and the four horsemen and blah blah blah. And Stitch says, "Oh, okay, so now we're gonna take out people for something they haven't even done yet." And Nightwing tries to placate Stitch by saying, "We're just talking worst case scenario here, right? We got to have a plan to subdue him. Nobody wants to hurt Nevermore." And I love Stitch saying, "No, Dane, say his name. It's Dane." When you say Nevermore and use his code name or whatever, you're dehumanizing them basically. So I do like that even the older Titans themselves, some of them like Beast Boy says, "Yeah, I gotta say Stitch is right," and Starfire agrees as well. Yeah, I agree. It's not something we should be considering yet, taking Dane out. There's got to be other ways. As far as what and who Dane is, this is somewhat of an origin story. We for sure are told that not only is Dane's father, some sort of demon, but he is, the demon. He is the devil. He is Satan, and Dane or Nevermore is referred to in here as the Antichrist, and it's also intimated that he may help to sort of start the apocalypse, Armageddon, end of times, whatever you want to call it, but that he doesn't even necessarily have control over it. So I do like him being teamed up with Red X here, because it does feel like Red X is bitten off a little more than they can chew, and uh, they've always been sort of this rebellious, whoever they are, they've been this rebellious character who sort of claims to have the moral high ground, and why are all these adults and older people using us for their own ends, and we should have our own freedom to make choices and this and that. But then he hauls off and kills Simon. So that stuff sort of starting to ring a little hollow to me, and a little hypocritical. It's clear to me that Red X has issues, and needs to be taken with a firm hand, and maybe retaught what right and wrong is, because I don't care what your morality is. You can't just go around killing people. And I get it, right? Like he's saying, oh, it was self-defense. There was no other way to free my fellow classmates, fellow members of the Teen Titans Academy without killing Simon. Well, the argument could be made that there was, right? And that's Stitch's whole point. Like, we can't just go around killing people because that's the easiest solution. So I expect we're going to get the second part of Dane's origin in the next issue. That right now to me is the most interesting aspect of the story. The identity of Red X being the least interesting. It's been dragged out too long, like we knew that it would be, and we're afraid that it would be, and warned them not to do. Obviously, they don't listen to us, but I don't care anymore. I just want Red X to go away at this point. Not an interesting character, but Dane I find to be very interesting. Um, and that was, to me, was the most interesting aspect of this story. As far as the art goes, I said it before, not a huge fan of Mike Norton's work on the book. I think the Tom Derenick pages work a little bit better. Not to say that the Mike Norton pages are awful. I think they're better than he did on the previous issue. Um, but I don't know. I think Mike Norton's not the best superhero artist. His stuff's more slice of life, or his Battle Pug series. His art on there is fantastic. But drawing all these, and it's a lot, right, to have to draw all these characters. So not a surprise we've had so many artists on this title already. So yeah, that's Book of Dane, a one shot basically, giving Dane's origin, but more to come because clearly there's a lot going on with this supposed invasion. Okay, up next we have Task Force Z #3. This is from writer Matthew Rosenberg. Eddie Barrows does the pencils, Ibar Ferreira on inks, Adriano Lucas on colors, Rob Lee on letters. I've said it before. This art team of Barrows, Ferreira, and Lucas is a dream team. We had them on the Freedom Fighters maxi series written by Robert Venditti a few years ago. Their art's as dynamic as ever, and we get a lot of action in this issue. Deadshot comes back. Red Hood apparently was mortally wounded. He's brought back. We have a fantastic fight between Red Hood and Cheshire, which is really great. We get some action with Bane, which is also nice. And we get the reveal finally of who Crispin is. So there's a lot to like in this issue. Love the interaction between Deadshot and Jason Todd. Matthew Rosenberg does have somewhat of a dark sense of humor. So when Deadshot does show up and, uh, you know, Jason Todd's trying to recover from being raised from the dead and the injuries he sustained in the last battle, he's like, what are you doing in here? You just come to eat me and finish the job? And Deadshot's like, wait, what? I've been eating people? He's still disoriented from being brought back to life. And again, great job by the art team to show this sort of zombified looking Deadshot. I don't necessarily think that bringing him back in this way lessens the impact of his death in the Suicide Squad by Tom Taylor, but and you knew they weren't going to leave him dead. He's too important of a character. Um, but he has some great reactions too. Like once Jason Todd explains what's going on and how he's on Task Force X, he's like, "Wait, I'm on another Suicide Squad? Like even dying didn't get me out of out of this, because he's sort of the longest tenured member. I mean, he was a member from the beginning of the 1987 version of the Suicide Squad that John Ostrander wrote, coming out of Legends event. And I think he's the only one that's pretty much been on the team like through all its iterations. Captain Boomerang's been there most of the time, maybe not always. Harley Quinn, more of a new member, but Deadshot, yeah, he's been there. I think from the beginning. Plastique was there, I think, for the whole time from the '87 one, but when it relaunched with the New 52, she wasn't there. But Deadshot, he's just a great character, and so he's been there all this time. So I'm not surprised to see them bring him back, and he does sort of have his own sense of morality. So I enjoyed that. I didn't necessarily enjoy seeing Jason Todd manipulated by various members of this Task Force Z, various administrative members, but also not real surprised by it. Jason's not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer, if you will. So, but he does get his revenge on Bane, which I thought was fantastic. That was a great scene, especially once he allows Bane to come back with a little more resin than he normally would get, and it's twofold, right? It helps Jason in his fight against Cheshire, but then it also helps because it makes Bane more aware. And then right before he kills Bane, he says, I'm doing this, right? He says, yes, say it, Alfred Pennyworth. Yeah, so it's definitely some revenge. Although he says Bane is gone, but is he just trying to keep Bane from being resurrected? And what does this say about, didn't he just vow to Batman that he wasn't going to kill anymore? That's why he's using a crowbar now instead of the guns, which I also think is super dark since he was killed by a crowbar. And then we have the final reveal that Crispin is Two-Face, which I suppose in some ways makes some sense. I mean, we've got Two-Face as the mayor and other of Gotham and other stories right now. So sort of a more cerebral Two-Face going on these days in the Batman corner of the DC universe. Although I don't know that despite the fact this has Jason Todd, it just doesn't feel like it ties in that much with Bat, or hasn't felt like it ties in that much with the Batman corner. But maybe it'll feel like that more um, now that Two Face is revealed as the mastermind behind it. But uh, one other thing that I'll mention on the credits page, which I've already given the credits, but for whatever reason, I'm sure Matthew Rosenberg's idea. It says Task Force Z created by, and then instead of having Matthew Rosenberg's name there, it says people who have to explain to relatives what Lazarus resin is. So I thought that was pretty funny. So anyway, I know you didn't. If I remember right, you didn't really like issue 2 of Task Force Z. Rocky, this third issue land better for you?
Yeah, well, I actually didn't like the first issue. I didn't like the concept. I did. I thought this was
Gotcha.
just sort of a ripoff of Suicide Squad, and it was issue 2 where it started to get better for me because I liked how it brought the emotions of things and how it. This is like I for some reason I feel more of the horror element of this. It's like the horror element of the Suicide Squad and just how Bane was basically they were keeping him just barely alive so he could, but not alive enough that he could even scream, and he finally gets alive enough here thanks to Jason Todd, who makes a deal. Basically, he wants to make sure he makes a deal with Amelia and Delia, uh, and of course, I guess Crispin, who he later finds out is Two-Face. He makes a deal with him, saying, "Look, I want my team to have enough Lazarus that they're actually alive, so that I'm not working with literal zombies. It's ridiculous." And of course, that's what he ultimately he does have. You mentioned just so many fantastic scenes here. I mean, Eddie Burrows on the art was fantastic, but just little moments like even the it's discovered here that it's not just Amelia, but Amelia has a twin, Delia, and it's kind of interesting that Two-Face, who's Crispin, uh, his lieutenants are Amelia and Delia, so there's two of them and they're twins, and he's Two-Face. So I wonder if Amelia and Delia are a sort of a dark and light side as well. Maybe that's a little bit too close to the chest, but close to the vest, so to speak. Sorry, but I just find that kind of funny. Like, of course, Two-Face would have lieutenants that are twins. I just think that's funny for some reason. Um, I love the fact that Jason Todd, he finds out who right away figures out it's Two-Face. I think it's an inspired choice to have Two-Face. I think it's a natural fit for Two-Face to lead this type of Suicide Squad. I mean, at least, Amanda Waller, we could say Amanda Waller is two-faced anyway, really. And again, close to the chest, but at least with Two-Face, Harvey Dent, I mean, he's at least with Harvey, you kind of your choices are limited. It's either going to be a good or a dark, a good or a bad day, and I really like it. I like the fact that Jason Todd is in fact dead. Now we know that Jason Todd, he died, and he's now addicted to the Lazarus resin as well, Lazarus pills. So he's gonna so they got him. They got control of him now as well. They got control of Deadshot. They got control. I cannot believe that Bane. Jason Todd wanted to kill Bane. I think just as for what he did to Alfred. But I suspect that while Bane is taken off the playing field here, I can't believe that. I have a feeling that Bane's going to be back. I imagine they're going to retrieve Bane because it's not like Bane would be difficult to locate. He was thrown off a building. I mean, it's not as if he would be an easy villain to find if he's splattered all over a sidewalk. But in any event, I love Cheshire. I kind of wish they make quick. Cheshire here is handily taken out by Bane. I kind of. I like the use of Cheshire. This is Leon Harper's mother, and I kind of want to see her. I want to see Cheshire more with Roy Harper and Leon Harper. I want to see that story take place and that reuniting of the mother and daughter. We saw that in the pages of Catwoman, but I don't know if I like seeing Cheshire in this here because I'm not sure how this. I mean, she was a member. She was almost like Catwoman's stray cats in the pages of Catwoman, and for her to run her own operations here. Cheshire seems like a character that seems a little bit like she's trying to find her way. Maybe this is just character building for Cheshire. It's interesting. I even find her mask interesting, the way that they've given her the mask. She's Cheshire and her daughter's Cheshire Cat. So all these moving parts is actually fairly, it's impressive. I like what Rosenberg's done here. This is just, this is really good. And the art's fantastic. This is more, I feel that where this is going, I'm feeling the character moments more than I do in Suicide Squad by uh, by Robbie Thompson, and but between Robbie Thompson and between what Robbie Thompson's doing on Suicide Squad and here with Rosenberg on Task Force Z, I mean, it's a great time to be a Suicide Squad kind of fan. That's all I got to say. Good stuff.
Yeah, and I think Red Hood is an inspired choice to lead this team. He, maybe you would have had a harder time getting him to, because Red Hood's never going to put up with Amanda Waller's bullshit. So having his own sort of Suicide Squad like team is fantastic. And we get lines like, "Hey Bane, stop pounding on her. Crispin doesn't want to interrogate a puddle."
Yeah.
I mean, that's just inspired. So, all right, up next we have Detective Comics number 1046, Out and Gone from writer Mariko Tamaki. Dan Moore is the artist, Jordi Belair on colors, Aditya Bidikar handles the letters. I just gotta quickly shout out before I talk about, or Rocky talks about the interior. It's this a Fear State aftermath, and very much is sort of a tie up loose end sort of issue, which I feel like we've gotten 3 of those now. Is it that hard to tie up Fear State? But I got to shout out the alternate or variant cover by Lee Bermejo, which is maybe as we close out 2021 here, may be my favorite cover of the year. I mean, it's absolutely just gorgeous work by Bermejo. I mean, look at that. That is just stunning. So, anyway, were you a fan of this issue, Rocky? Or are you ready for us to put Fear State completely in the rear view like I am?
Well, yeah. Well, this is while this it did sort of continue to wrap up Fear State. This definitely felt like a prelude to Shadow of the Bat. There were a couple of seeds here that were planted that I think it's probably a safe bet to say some of these characters that we were introduced to in this issue are going to play a role in Shadows of the Bat. And Marika Tamaki, I think, does a good job in this prelude, sort of setting up some of the characters that will play a role. In particular, this new character called Anna Volshin, Anna Volshin, who is basically a glorified thief who ends up being stopped by, I guess, spoiler or Stephanie Brown, Batgirl, and through the combination of Batgirl, Stephanie Brown, and Batman, Bruce Wayne, Batman, they stop this Anna Volshin, and she is a murderer. They take her down, and she's ultimately going to be someone that will likely end up at Arkham Tower. We're also introduced to Mayor Nagano's, I believe it's his wife, whose name is Koyuki. And I think Koyuki suffers from some kind of mental illness, maybe suffers from some kind of depression. And I'm assuming it's Mayor Nagano's wife or daughter, maybe. It wasn't clear. I'm assuming it's his wife. But so we got characters that are going to likely play a role in Shadows of the Bat, which again, just from inference of where this is going and future solicits, it's going to be the idea of, Dr. Meridian is recruited by Mayor Nagano they're going to put Arkham Tower on a 1-month trial, sort of like a probation, to see how this, because they haven't had a lot of luck with Arkham Asylum. So with this new Arkham Tower, they're going to give it a month. And Mayor Nagano has basically hired Dr. Chase Meridian to sort of evaluate and do an assessment in terms of how all the psychologists are going to perform their tasks for Arkham Tower over the course of the next 30 days. And so, presumably, since in real time, crossing the meta boundary, I mean, over the next 30 days, we're going to be getting for the next how many weeks, more chapters, chapters of Shadows of the Bat. And where this is going to go, I'm not sure, but it's fair to say that this is going to have to do with probably the successes and failures in terms of the rehabilitation attempts of various Batman villains. And this Anna Volshin character seems to be a character who's she's murderous and she's quite screwed up in her own way. So overall, I didn't mind this. The Huntress herself is introduced, Mariko Tamaki. Huntress now appears to have a superpower. She has violent visions that were triggered by that parasitic infection of Hugh Vile. So she can kind of see horrific and violent acts before they actually occur. She can almost see through psychopath's eyes. So Huntress still seems to have that ability. Artistically here, Dan Mora, there's a couple sequences here that I thought sort of threw me a little bit. There is one it's a beautiful sequence where Stephanie Brown as Batgirl takes out Anna Volshin, who is driving this vehicle, but it looks like she explodes the vehicle, like she throws a bomb inside the vehicle, and then the vehicle suddenly doesn't appear to be damaged at all, and then she shoots a sort of like a batter, sort of like a bat rope to lock the tires and flips the car. So the car both explodes and flips, and Anna Volshin isn't dead. I thought it was I thought the sequences were a little bit confusing. It was visually spectacular. The color, Jordi Belair on the coloring is fantastic. I mean, visually, this is a beautiful comic. And you gave a shout out to the cover, that cover B. I love the cover A, just with Bruce Wayne with the Batman tattoo, with the bat symbol as it almost like burned on his back as he's looking at the TV. I think it's just a visually eye-catching sort of visual. So the covers here are great this week, and this is a good prelude, I think, leading into Shadows of the Bat. So what do you think?
Yeah, sort of not much happens here, unless this all this is prelude, like you said. It's Anna Volshin character again. It's like she's presented in such a way like that we should feel like we already know who she is, but we don't. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out in future issues. I agree with you about Mayor Nakano's wife. Uh, Apparently Stephanie Brown is going to be a part of it, along with Huntress. The Shadows of the Bat, we know Batman's going to be out of town. So how this ties in with what's going on in Batgirls, because it doesn't feel at all like a Batgirls title. From what for that matter, what we've had of a Batgirl, Barbara Gordon showing up in Nightwing, doesn't feel like that really ties in either. But yeah, so sort of strange. So I don't know. This is very much a transitional issue, getting sort of some people in place. But I definitely feel like this issue should have come out before the latest issue of Batman, when Batman has already left Gotham, right? Like if you read that issue and then you read this one, you're like, wait, he's back in Gotham? Not necessarily. I agree with you about the that sequence from Dan Mora. Normally Dan Mora is very, very good artist. He doesn't do the best job of making it clear what's happening. I had to go back and look at the sequence multiple times. So if you look at it, Stephanie Brown is pulling out her batarang. If you go up one page, Rocky, you'll see she's got her batarang in hand there, and you see behind her is a Ford Mustang. And then she throws that batarang, and it goes through the back of Anna Volshin's car. And then Anna Volshin on the next page, she says, boom. And then that's the car behind Stephanie Brown that actually explodes.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie Brown, despite being thrown by this explosion, still manages to fire off her grappling gun, lock up the tires, and the getaway car, the Ferrari that Anna Volshin is driving, flips over the old woman and doesn't run her down. And just, I mean, really far-fetched. A cool visual, I guess. We've seen it in movies hundreds of times at this point, where a car flips over and doesn't hurt somebody. But Stephanie Brown, she doesn't even have superpowers, man. I mean, come on. She's going to be able to fire this grappling hook off and lock up the tires to a point where the car flips over this old woman. So yeah, got to disagree with that visual sequence there. It didn't work for me. And then as far as Arkham Tower Rising in Shadows of the Bat, man, I really can't think of something I care about less than Arkham Tower. It should have been Pennyworth Tower in my mind. Maybe it will get there in the end, but it should be there from the beginning in my mind. Maybe I'm just fixated on that pitch from James Tynion on what he might have done had he stayed on the title. But that's sort of that feeling of man, am I sick of the term Arkham or the name Arkham being tied in with Gotham City. That continues in the backup story, which is written by Stephanie Phillips. Art is by David Lapham. We have Trish Mulvihill on colors, Rob Lee on letters. finishes off the story of Harley Quinn and this old guy who used to be an inmate at Arkham or a patient at Arkham, and he was talking about how basically when all the lunatics came in, it turned Arkham from a hospital into this loony bin, and it poisoned the town. And he's trying to destroy the new Arkham Tower before it's even built, and Batman has to team up with Harley Quinn in order to stop it. And Batman's talking about this is the second chance for Arkham. I'm not buying it. I don't know why. I mean, with everything that's happened in Gotham City, like we've talked about hundreds of times recently, it seems like nobody in their right mind would live in Gotham City. Nobody would. There's just too much garbage that goes on, too much insanity.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that you finally A-Day happens, Arkham burns to the ground, you're going to build a new mental health facility, you're going to call it the same thing? Like, nobody would do that. It is so unrealistic. Like, in this day and age where things get rebranded all the time because of optics, you're telling me that a loony bin, an insane asylum that's been around for decades, if not a century, that has housed, the worst criminals in Gotham City, and now there was this horrific event on A-Day where many, many people died. You're going to build a new tower and you're going to call it Art. There's nobody alive. There's no Arkham doctor alive. There's no Arkham family alive that's having anything to do with this thing being built. There's no reason for it to be called Arkham other than to link it to the past Arkham Asylum, which only has negative connotations to it. It's asinine. It's completely stupid. I disagree with it completely. And I doubt very seriously whether anything that happens in Shadows of the Bat, which is going to focus on this Arkham Tower, I doubt anything Mariko Tamaki does in that story is going to make any logical or realistic sense whatsoever. And I hope I'm wrong, but I don't possibly see how I can be. It is completely stupid. Call it Pennyworth, call it Gotham Tower, call it mental health facility, whatever. You don't call it Arkham. You just don't. It's dumb. So sorry for the rant, but I find it asinine.
Well, I agree with you. Is your rant over? I don't want to interrupt it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's insulting to the intelligence of any DC comic reader. It's that bad.
Yeah, I think in terms of, I think it lacks verisimilitude, but at the same time, and I think I mentioned this last time, Arkham Asylum is just associated with Batman, and for corporate reasons, for reasons of copyright alone, you pretty much know they don't want to eliminate that name, even though it would make far more sense.
The ruins of Arkham can still be there, and you can still tell stories and have things happen with Arkham Asylum.
Fair enough. You could still technically have Arkham Asylum be like associated with, the Pennyworth Foundation. They could still work in conjunction with Arkham, and they could, you're right. They could absolutely call it the Pennyworth Foundation, or for rehabilitation or whatever for the criminally insane. And yeah, they could do both. And the fact that maybe they, they're calling this a second chance, and yeah, I don't. It seems so absurd, only because you're right. Batman's rogues gallery is just, they're all insane killers, and it's funny, the very last panel in this backup is with Batman saying this is a second chance. Well, how many chances? I mean, this is not a second chance. This is like the millionth chance.
Exactly.
Right? Like you said, this is the millionth chance. I mean, third, fourth, fifth. I mean, how many chances is one going to get? And then it's one thing to, like you said, it's one thing to reinstate and to call it Arkham, but to literally have now Arkham Tower literally in the middle of Gotham. At least before it was Arkham, I always understood Arkham Asylum to be on the outskirts of Gotham. So at least when they escaped, you had the people of the citizens of Gotham had maybe a 5-minute head start to get out of the city. Now that's not the case, because now when they escape, they're literally in the middle, in the heart of Gotham. So it is kind of comical. The plus side here is David Lapham's art is really good. So I think in terms of the script and the dialogue, Stephanie Phillips, writer Stephanie Phillips, did a good job here. I think I think this was editorially driven. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming this was sort of a command from high up saying, we want Arkham Tower now. Let's modernize it a little bit, and that's what they're doing. We'll see what Marika Tamaki is going to do moving forward in terms of making maybe giving us a different perspective about Arkham Tower to maybe moving forward into the new year. We'll see.
Yeah, again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Marika Tamaki somehow makes it make sense, but I I really don't see how she can. I don't. It's just, yeah, it makes no sense. Anyway, let's move on. Superman 78, number 5, from writer Robert Venditti. Wilfredo Torres is the artist, Jordi Blair on colors, David Lamphere of A Larger World handles the letters. We've really been enjoying this, Rocky. Did this issue hit for you as well?
Yeah, it hit. I do notice that um, it's it. I'm almost surprised at how many people. Just as my own observation is that a lot of my fellow YouTube reviewers or our fellow YouTube reviewers really love this. There seems to be almost a unanimous kind of love for this title for Superman 78, and it's getting a lot of love from many different circles. Everyone really seems to love it, and as a compliment to a writer, it's Robert Venditti. Uh, as we've said before, it captures the essence of Christopher Reeve so well, and it's not just Christopher Reeve, but all the characters. And this really, you can imagine, at least for me, uh, even the way that artist Wilfredo Torres, the way that he renders it here, I even get a sense of, I can imagine the movie with very bad special effects. And I say that with love, not as a criticism, because uh, this is a good story. This is a good story. I think it captures all the characters so well. It's a lot of fun. And the continuity I think is a little wonky. I just don't quite understand how Jor-El and Laura survived and ended up with Kandor. But that's a nitpick. I'm just glad to see what it looks like to be the Marlon Brando character with his son, with Laura. They get to see their son again, and they they get to the last issue. We both got a chuckle on how Jor-El gave Lex Luthor a compliment, saying, he's quite genius. He created like an alpha wave, uh, something or another to allow Jor-El to sort of connect to the outside world and influence and to hack into Brainiac's shrinking technology, which ultimately what he does in this particular issue, and which allows Superman to escape and to enlarge and confront Brainiac in this issue. The dialogue here is just really bang on. You really get a sense. I mean, artistically, that this is Christopher Reeve. It feels familiar. People, if you've been loving this series so far, you're going to continue to love this series in a way that I don't think that the Batman '89 series is getting as much love and attention as this one is. Simply because this one deals more with the characters that we all know and love, and maybe got more box office love and attention and a feeling of nostalgia here. Um, yeah, story wise, it's good. The art's fantastic. I mean, it really I mean, artistically, this really drives it home. You can. I don't even want to ruin it here. I mean, he confronts Brainiac. Brainiac breaches. I mean, he made it. Superman makes a deal with Brainiac, but Brainiac is the one that actually ends up breaking his word. And so it's with Superman confronting Brainiac at the end. There's a great scene with Superman flying with his fists in front of him. I mean, just like as you associate with the Superman character. Again, movie nostalgia, right up there. Just a really enjoyable read. And yeah, I don't really got much to add. There's nothing wrong with this comic. I think narratively, this is going to put a smile on people's faces. This is going to read excellent as a trade. There's one issue left. This ends on a cliffhanger. We're going to obviously get the big final battle between Brainiac and Superman next issue. I think this is it's well worth it. It's well worth it. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to what you're saying. I mean, like we've said throughout, it captures the tone and feel of the Richard Donner movies excellent. Um, and the only negative I'll say about it is that I'm just super disappointed that we never got Richard Donner Superman 3 with this type of story going up against Brainiac. I mean, would have been maybe the best Superman movie yet. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. One of the things that I kind of chuckled at. So we have Action Comics this week, and it's the older Superman, and he's got the gray hair around his sort of his temples wrapping around the back. And then in this one, we've got Superman who puts this sort of device that Jor-El gives him around his head, and there were a few pages where I'm scrolling through the digital copy, and I'm like, wait, why does he have gray hair? Oh no, that's
Yeah.
the that's the,
That's
that's not
right.
gray
Yeah.
hair. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
uh, the device that Jor-El gave him. The other thing that I want to shout out is the colors by Jordi Belair. So if you've seen the original, either first or second Superman movie, you'll remember that in the scenes on Krypton, or Krypton, as Marlon Brando always used to pronounce it, they were wearing the white. They would wear the white robes, right? And the white robes, in the way that they filmed it, would like glow, especially in the early scenes in Superman 1, where Jor-El was sort of playing the role of prosecutor and getting the Phantom Zone villains condemned to the Phantom Zone, and everything else is dark and in shadow, and the white robes that Jor-El was wearing just had this glow to them. If you look at the pages that Jordi Belair colors with Jor-El and Laura, you'll see you'll see how much those robes look like they're glowing. Especially if you go down one more page, Rocky. Yeah, right there in the scene where you can really see it, where Jor-El and Laura are kind of holding each other.
Yeah.
You'll notice that she's created a little bit of a glow around them, and so it really makes those colors pop. And it's just a little continuity thing, a little detail that she was paying attention to the source material and bringing that aspect in to the comic, which again sort of sets it in that world that Richard Donner created. And I really appreciated that she paid attention to that, because it's noticeable when you read the comic. So yeah, fantastic job by Robert Venditti, who is a huge fan of those Superman movies. So great job, Rob. Okay, up next we have Human Target #3. This is written by Tom King, art by Greg Smallwood, letters by Clayton Cowles. And when I say art, the colors are by Greg Smallwood as well. Hope you guys all got a chance to listen to my interview with Tom King on the Christmas Day episode of the 12 Days of the Comic Source. We discussed this. Tom and he talked about the art and how Greg is just blowing it out of the water and created a whole new style for this book. The first two issues definitely had a lot of charm to them. That's the word that comes to mind most when I think about the first two issues of Human Target. Some of that charm is still here, but not to the same extent in issue 3. Instead, issue 3 adds a little bit more a sense of urgency to the mystery that's going on with who poisoned Christopher Chance while trying to poison Lex Luthor. There's also a lot of humor in this issue with Christopher Chance, the Human Target, and Ice going to talk to Booster, who Tom King very much plays Booster Gold to comedic effect very, very well here. But the majority of the issue sort of focuses on this back and forth, this antagonism between Christopher Chance and Guy Gardner. And normally think, okay, Christopher Chance, he's Human Target. He doesn't necessarily have any powers. You've got Guy Gardner, who has a Green Lantern ring, arguably the most powerful weapon in all of the DC universe. What chance does, no pun intended, what chance does the Human Target have against Guy Gardner? But Guy Gardner is not, the sharpest tool in the shed. So I love sort of the resolution of that, and how Christopher Chance, it shows his ability to sort of live in that world of these superhumans and hold his own by what he does and how he tricks Guy Gardner in the end. So I mean, this continues to be an absolutely fantastic book. And much like Tom told me when we chatted, you don't even need to read the words. You pick up this book and just look at the art. This book is worth the price of admission just for the art alone. So yeah, this, and don't get me wrong, I loved Rorschach. Strange Adventures I liked to a lesser extent, although I feel like Tom accomplished exactly what he set out to do with Strange Adventures. Um, But this is the first one of these type of books, right? One of these 12 issue maxi series that Tom has done, where I'm like, I don't just want the next issue. I want every single issue. I want the rest. I want all 9 issues. I want the rest of it. I want it right now. I can't wait to read it. I haven't felt like that on a Tom King book since Mr. Miracle, since the first issue of Mr. Miracle. Like, this is fantastic, and I want the whole story, and I want it right now. I know that's not going to happen. I got to wait 9 more months, but that's how good this is. As soon as I finish reading it, I want the next one, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. Like, I want to be able to see all the gorgeous Greg Smallwood art, and I want to know what happens with Ice and with Christopher Chance and the mystery of who tried to kill Lex Luthor. Like, I want this whole story. So I think this is doing pretty well. At the same time, Human Target, not that Mr. Miracle, before Tom and Mitch got a hold of it, was a household name. I feel like that series definitely raised the profile of Mr. Miracle, but certainly Human Target is less known than Mr. Miracle, despite the fact that Human Target's had 2 TV shows. Mr. Miracle's had 0. I mean, there are a lot of DC characters that haven't had any TV shows, and yet Human Target of all the properties, right? Go figure. But anyway, it wouldn't surprise me if we get a third or a Human Target movie, because that, like, I think that's how good this is. I think the success of Mr. Miracle is sort of what sparked the New Gods idea of a New Gods film, and I know it got shelved. A lot tougher to do a New Gods movie, a lot more expensive. Obviously, Christopher Chance, much more of a street level character, and this is a fantastic premise. A guy solving his own murder. And Tom even said that a lot of the inspiration for this came from a movie from back in the 30s or 40s called DOA, where a guy's poisoned in a bar and has to solve his own murder. So clearly it's worked before for film. I'm sure it could work again. So yeah, this is fantastic. What do you think, Rocky?
I love this. I've been watching some James Bond movies lately. I watched I watched Thunderball a couple nights ago, and then I'd watched Doctor Noah before that. This actually reminds me of that. It has that same. It feels, even though I know it's taken place in modern times, it feels like it has sort of that old nostalgic sort of 60s feel to it because of Greg Smallwood's art. I absolutely love this. I agree with you. I think that I mean, kudos to Tom King. I listened to your interview with that DOA movie. I love the premise. I think it's great. I love how, I mean, the funny thing is I thought that one of the criticisms I had of Tom King's Batman run is that there was a number of issues where Booster Gold appeared in his Batman run, and I wasn't the only one that felt that he completely misunderstood Booster Gold. And he miswrote Booster Gold in his Batman run for a whole slew of reasons, which I won't get into because I'm complimenting Tom King now. He nailed Booster Gold here much better than he did in his Batman run. He got Booster Gold's humor and just it felt more right, and the dialogue here just feels right. The interaction, the sexual innuendo, and the sexual tension between Christopher Chance and Ice here is just incredible. I mean, it's actually building up. I mean, I want these two to do the nasty. I mean, I feel it. I feel like I did watching Moonlighting back in the day with Bruce Willis and what's the actress's name?
Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil Shepherd. Yeah, it's like, will they or won't they? I mean, will they or won't they? And I mean, just the tension back and forth. This is really good. And Guy Gardner too. I'm actually kind of curious what diehard Green Lantern fans think about the characterization of Guy Gardner here. Is Guy Gardner the type of guy that would surrender his ring to Hal Jordan? Like, I mean, the way Christopher Chance plays the game of psychology and really thinks that, he psychologically breaks down Guy Gardner, thinking that Guy Gardner would voluntarily give up his ring because he's afraid of Hal Jordan. I'm wondering how many people, Green Lantern fans, actually agree with that. I think it's possible. I've never really thought of Guy Gardner as being afraid of Hal Jordan, to be honest. So I think that's something I think Tom King's taking some liberties there. But at the same time, I guess I can believe it. I mean, it's not a big deal, but I know a couple of people in the Weird Science DC chat that are, I'm going to be curious to pick their brain to see if they agree with that sort of characterization, or if this is just going to be more ammunition for saying, oh, look what Tom King has done to this character, you know? I love it though. I like it. I like how he sort of pokes fun. Guy Gardner, I think he's, he gets some good scenes in here, Guy Gardner, and he's not made a complete fool out of. He definitely takes he's very aggressive here, Guy Gardner. He is kind of like the jerk boyfriend, which I imagine, which he always was during the Justice League International days. This felt like Guy Gardner to me. And that's a compliment to Tom King, because I can't always say that about Tom King when Tom King writes characters, because sometimes I just don't agree with the characterizations and the personalities that he gives characters that I feel I know. But I feel like I think this I found this believable. That this is I like what Christopher Chance did there. I like how he manipulated Guy Gardner. I like how he's interacting with Ice. I love how he's he's dying, but at the same time he is he's well on his way to this is going somewhere. And even though the story wise not a heck of a lot happens here, I don't care, because these character moments are so incredible. The art's fantastic. This is like watching just a fantastic movie, and the coloring is gorgeous. And even the cover with as crazy as it is, with Booster Gold on the cover with the pink background, like he's eating a hot dog with Christopher Chance. I mean, it's crazy, but this works. This works. The highest praises I can give this comic. I'm absolutely thoroughly enjoying myself. I'm like you. I want the entire trade now. I want to read this thing from beginning to end now. I don't have the patience to wait another how many months for this to be over, but I mean that in the highest compliment at this point.
Yeah, as far as the Guy Gardner thing, I think that's more the characterization of Guy when he first was introduced, how he sort of hero worshipped Hal.
Yeah.
Whenever he got to fill in, it was such a big thing. But yeah, he seems to have gotten over that over the years. He still has great respect for Hal, but yeah, it's a little bit of Tom going back to the earlier characterization of the character, which like you said, I don't necessarily mind it. It works in the context of the story. So
Yeah.
all right, let's move on. We've got the Flash number 777. This is from writer Jeremy Adams. Fernando Pasarin and Matt Ryan are the artists. Jeremy Cox does the color. Rob Lee on letters. I know you've really been digging Flash, so what do you think of this issue?
Well, this issue, Jeremy Adams, I mean, he continues to weave a story that puts a smile on my face. Once again, we get great action sequences juxtaposed alongside Wally West's family, and we get more of it here, and to great effect. Last issue ended with Flash meeting up. Well, in an adventure with Dr. Fate, in an issue where you could flip the page of the comic and you could, it was kind of a meta type of issue, but it ended with him ultimately meeting up with Justice League Dark. And the title of this particular issue is Vengeance is Mine. And Fernando Pasarin and Matt Ryan, they combine their artistic talents and do a fantastic job. And what Jeremy Adams does here to great effect is that he gives a lot of intelligence to Wally West. I like that. Wally West is the guy that steps up to the plate and actually figures things out for Justice League Dark. There's a wonderful sequence here where, I mean, they're essentially on Gem World, and they're looking for Eclipso, and Eclipso is sort of like a magical being who always uses these, who needs to focus his powers through like dark crystals, and he's on Gem World, and all these magical members of Justice League Dark, John Constantine, Ragman, Zatanna, the Demon, Bibbo, the Detective Chimp, all these characters, Dr. Fate, Amethyst, Princess of Gem World, they're trying to figure out how to find Eclipso and what his motive is, and they end up ultimately locating again through Wally West. It's Wally West's actions that ultimately lead them to the prison where Dark Opal, the arch nemesis of Princess of Amethyst, is this Dark Opal character, and they want to use Dark Opal to lead them to where Eclipso is. but they're still trying to figure out what would Eclipso's agenda be. And it's Wally West has an amazing callback where he remembers something that from his past, where he basically says, it's not science, you guys. I mean, John Constantine almost tries to make a joke out of Wally West, saying, here's the speedster. He's going to help us figure out, what Eclipso is doing. And Wally West does that. He says, we're on Gem World, so if you're going to locate the largest gem in the heart of Gem World, well, obviously Eclipso is going to use that. It's basic science, and I like how they did that. So Wally West, just like Wally West had something to contribute when he was hired by Mr. Terrific. Had he had something to contribute to the scientists, once again, Wally West has something to contribute even to powerful sorcerers and beings of magical power here with Justice League Dark. I thought it was very well done, entertaining. All this is alongside a wonderful backup, or not a backup, sorry. It's juxtaposed with scenes of Jay and Irie and they have some high school shenanigans where where Irie gets involved with some school shenanigans with her best friend Maxine, and they're sort of like they're almost like they're both redheads, so I guess you could say they're what do you call it, twins? They're hair twins because they're both redheads. And Jay has given Irie all his powers, like because their dad doesn't want Jay to have all his powers of the Speed Force but so Irie has most of the powers. And just wonderful dialogue between Linda and the kids, and just the machinations of what's going on. It feels like a family drama, and they're wondering where their dad is, and then he's with Justice League Dark. Jeremy Adams here is having so much fun with this, and I'm really enjoying this. This is it's probably tied for first or my second favorite of the week. God, there's a solid 3 comics I love this week. I'm really enjoying this. There's a hint of a villain at the end that might come to haunt Jay and Irie. It looks like Blockbuster at the end, in the shadows in the back. It looks like Blockbuster, but maybe it's another villain. I'm not sure who it is, but I'm loving this. The art, Matt Ryan and Fernando Pasaran on the art, fantastic. Jeremy Cox on the colors. They just pop off the page, especially on those sequences in Gem World where they have a giant, almost like Dune-like worm chasing the Flash underground, smashing into this crystalline wall that falls apart where Dark Opal is revealed. And this is a fun comic. Like, just continues to impress the hell out of me.
Yeah, for me, the colors are the most impressive thing. Jeremy Cox's colors are very bright, very sort of traditionally superheroic. I think it helps to set the mood for the comic very, very well. In terms of the story itself, it's fine. I don't have the love for Wally West that you do. Wally West is not who I would consider my Flash, despite the fact I've read more Wally West Flash. Well, maybe I've caught up with Barry Allen now, but Barry Allen was the Flash that I first read, but it was right around 320-ish when I started reading that. It ended at 350, so I maybe read it for like 2.5, 3 years and it wasn't honestly that great because it was when he was on trial for killing Professor Zoom, and it was kind of boring. But I don't know. Barry Allen's always been my Flash, despite I think that in the beginning, Wally, I was a little more invested in Wally, but I never read that much of the Wally West era when it was Linda and it was the kids, and so I don't have the nostalgia for it that a lot of people do. So this is fine. It's interesting. I find that honestly, this isn't a Flash comic. This particular issue, we actually get very little Wally. We get almost as much of the Justice League Dark as we get Wally, and we certainly get more of Jay and Irie than we do of the Flash. So, Flash family, I guess. But for fans of Wally, who loved that era of his family and lamented them being gone and not brought back in the New 52, I can see why you're totally going to love this. For me, it's just okay. If if Irie can't see what bad news Maxine is, oh boy, maybe she's not as smart as I've given her credit for being in the past. Jay obviously sees it, but I don't know. Maybe she's blinded by the friendship. But yeah, clearly, and I wonder, is Maxine even a little girl, or is she a villain in disguise, uh, or somebody pretending to be a little girl? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, like Rocky said, clearly there's menace lurking right behind either Blockbuster or I don't know Solomon Grundy. I mean, long hair, so definitely looks more like Blockbuster. So I guess we'll see. All right. Up next, Justice League number 70. Uh, written by Brian Michael Bendis. We've got art by Phil Hester. Inks are by Eric Gabster, so I guess pencils by Phil Hester, inks by Eric Gabster, colors by Romulo Fardo Jr., letters by Josh Reed. I hate that I have to go first here. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it really short. I mean, I could point out this or that or the other thing. Anybody who listens to our DC Spotlights knows we're not the biggest Bendis fans, um, and I want to like this. I do, but you know, like I've said in the past about Phil Hester's style, his style is not that great when it comes to drawing superheroes. It's too angular, it's too blocky, doesn't give a great sense of movement. And then when you're asking him to draw multiple characters like he needs to in Justice League, it's even exacerbated. And then not only that, not only is he asked to draw multiple superheroes, he's asked to draw multiple super villains because they're going up against the Royal Flush Gang. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you feel differently, Rocky, but to me, the Royal Flush Gang have always been somewhat of a joke, like not very formidable, not very much of a threat. And Bendis is trying to turn them into this like world-ending threat that they can rival the Justice League, and you know this
Yeah.
is all still tied up in Leviathan and all the other nonsense Bendis has going on, and
Yeah.
it's just
No.
getting more and more convoluted and just not very good.
Yeah.
And we know Bendis is leaving Justice League. Hold your applause till I'm done. Um, it can't come soon enough. He's not suited for this title. He's not.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I
So
agree. I mean, I agree. And the Royal Flush Gang isn't that impressive, but you got to wonder if it's a little bit tongue in cheek. Just to interject a bit, I know I interrupted you, but you know,
no,
even
I'm done. I'm
Leviathan
done.
says, so
I don't
but
want to say anything more about this. So
okay,
you
but
go.
even Leviathan here, you know, I Leviathan has to be joking because he actually says that. He actually tells the Royal Flush Gang, I mean, this is Mark Shaw. I'm Mark Shaw. I'm Leviathan. I think you guys are underrated. You guys really impress me. Well, coming from Mark Shaw, who we've already seen basically killed. He's been killed. He's dead. He's killed because he was a joke. He was killed off in his own bloody series. For God's sakes, check me. I mean, we know that Mark Shaw is a joke. This is where the continuity is out of whack. So the continuity, Bendis has never been good with continuity to begin with, and I'll even go so far as to say that even though I might be wrong on this, I'll even say that maybe that's not all Bendis's fault because DC continuity has been wonky at the best of times, and so I'm not going to put that all on Bendis. But you know, this is already a stale dated storyline. Superman shouldn't even be in this comic. I mean, this is an old storyline. Who cares about the Royal Flush Gang? I will say this, trying to put a positive spin on this, I like the idea of the Royal Flush Gang, and I get some sense here where they want to pull off a heist. The Royal Flush Gang, they want to pull off an ultimate heist, and they want to be able to do that and pull one over on the Justice League. And so the idea that the Royal Flush Gang was responsible for maybe, you know, manipulating the Damon Rose, Lois Lane's brother, and manipulating all these things that have happened so far, that it's been the Royal Flush Gang that's been doing this all along. It's it does seem like this is something that a Royal Flush Gang, it does seem to be, I think, out of their higher than their pay grade. But this is actually part 2 of, and this issue is called The Biggest Score Ever, Part 2. Well, it's a big score, but it's a big score for the Royal Flush Gang. And it's and they part of the reason why the Fortress of Solitude was stolen, that was pulled off by the Royal Flush Gang. They stole the Fortress of Solitude. There is an absurd exchange between Black Adam and Superman. The dialogue is, again, I mean, I know we talk about Bendis' dialogue, but this is incredible. This, I mean, this, can you imagine this exchange between Black Adam and Superman? Because this is actually in the comic book. Black Adam says, "Now I see it. You should let go of your feelings more. It's better for you in the long run." This is what he says to Superman. Superman says, "Help me find the fortress." And then Black Adam says, "I just gave you some wisdom of Zahuti for free." And he says, "Thank you." And then he says to Superman, this is what you look like when you're very upset? Yes, good to know. You've seen me upset before. You've made me this upset before. This dialogue is just ridiculous. It's so stupid. Like, this is like this would be like a couple of first graders going and imagine a conversation between, like, this doesn't move the narrative. I mean, literally Superman, Black Adam, they're just commenting on the fact that the fortress is gone. That's it. They're just talking about it. It disappeared last issue, but they're just making the observation that the fortress is gone, and Black Adam is saying, "Why aren't you more upset? This is you upset. It's just, this is the stuff that is so terrible." And then, we're supposed to care that this is a big deal because Superman has all these terribly crazy things, and he's got all this alien tech at the Fortress of Solitude, and it's been stolen, and there's just, none of this has any stakes. We know this is going nowhere, and who talks about the Royal Flush Gang? I mean, who cares? This is just, it makes me just want to shake my head. But in any event, this is what happens when you, unfortunately, virtually everything that Bendis has brought to DC has been a failure in terms of a narrative, and unfortunately, so much of it is incorporated in this issue. Checkmate, Leviathan being leader of Markovia, the Royal Flush Gang, the bad dialogue, it's cringeworthy stuff, and it's all crammed in one issue. He couldn't leave this title soon enough. The only saving grace for this title is what it's always been, and that is the Justice League Dark backup, which you can talk about first if you want.
Yeah, like you said, it's clearly the highlight. I do sort of, and we talked about it when we did the Justice League Dark Annual. That wasn't as good as what these backups have been, which is so strange to me because not only did Rom V get more than 8 pages, he got more than he would get in a regular issue, and it was a bit of setup for this, but this is sort of continuing the regular narrative. So we get Constantine trying to reach Zatanna in a unique way by basically impersonating her father, which poor Zatanna, right? Like, here we see her basically nearly transformed into the Upside Down Man. We saw her in DC Vampires 3, DC versus Vampires 3, turned into a vampire, which I didn't comment on, but that was another thing that sort of lacked a ring of truth to me. I mean, if anybody's going to be able to know vampires, see vampires, prevent themselves from being turned into a vampire, you think it would be one of DC's preeminent magic users. But anyway, I forgot to mention that. But yeah, here, like I said, Constantine is trying to reach her by impersonating her father. Whether or not she can finally be purged of the Upside Down Man once and for all, I guess we'll have to wait and see, because she still is very much struggling. But I like that. I like that struggle. It's humanizing her. There's always the sort of risk when you write Zatanna of making her too powerful, and basically you can just choose to have her speak anything you want to happen in reverse, and it happens, right? So I appreciate that James Tynion, and then him handing the baton off to Rom V, hasn't chose to just go ex Deus Machina with Zatanna and make the same mistakes that Marvel's made with Scarlet Witch, right? Whenever you need a big thing to happen in the Marvel Universe, like no more mutants, just give it to Scarlet Witch. But then over the years, they've done it so many times, now they've messed up the character of Scarlet Witch. She has all this trauma because of all these huge momentous things that she's done, including, causing the death of thousands of mutants. So I'm glad that the powers that be at DC, or maybe it's the writers, maybe we give all the credit to Tynion and Rom V. They haven't done that. In terms of the narrative for Merlin, who just last issue summoned Arion, um, sort of the last big before Aquaman, the last big well-known ruler of Atlantis, sorcerer, and really links Atlantis in with its magic and its history. We didn't get a lot of advancement in that portion of the story. A little bit as we see Merlin and Arion sort of escape. Um, I think that'll come next. But again, we sound like a broken record, but Justice League Dark deserves its own title. I much rather would be getting a Justice League Dark full story every month and only have to suffer through 8 pages of the regular JLA title. I would feel much better about my life. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so good. I can't wait to read it all in a collection where it'll flow even better instead of getting 8 pages at a time. What are your thoughts, Rocky?
I think it's worth noting something that Merlin says to Dr. Fate, which he said something similar, but he's more stark about it in this issue, and Merlin hinted at this in the Future State issues, but he says to Dr. Fate here, Merlin says, think, Dr. Fate, why is the balance of order and chaos forever tested here, meaning in this realm on Earth Prime, Earth Designate Zero? Why this realm? Why this planet, this universe? What comes from tempering a whole planet in the fires of conflict like this? And it's an interesting question because one of the things that's being explored for those of us who are reading Justice League Incarnate and who've read the Infinite Frontier is, there are certainly players and characters elsewhere in the DC multiverse, in particular the characters on Earth 8, that don't want to be involved in the multiverse. They're tired of multiversal wars. They resent Earth Prime. They resent Earth Designate Zero because, bloody hell, it does seem to be that the mainstream DC universe is always having a crisis of some time. The balance of order and chaos is forever in some sort of flux. And, of course, we can joke about the crisis. Why is that? So Merlin poses an interesting question here. Now, I'm not sure if that question is going to be answered. Ram V, there's only 8 more pages and Ram V is done on this particular Justice League Dark story. But it's interesting to note that the answer to the question might be answered in the summer of 2022 when we get into the next DC crisis. So it's interesting. I like the callback at the end where with Wonder Woman returning, because Wonder Woman was part of Justice League Dark early on. Wonder Woman returns at the end to help Zatanna, because Zatanna feels alone, that she doesn't have a friend. And it's nice to see Diana return to help Zatanna, help overcome the influence of the Upside Down Man. And they all are together as a team. I continue to love the art. The art's really good. I love the effect where they have this sort of like the magical little, almost like bubble around their heads, like they're underwater, and just sort of like the magical little, I guess, air bubble around all of them, and the effects and the coloring. It's just it's a nice title. It's beautiful. I definitely will be getting this as a trade when it comes out. And we've talked about that. If you're a Justice League Dark fan, this is kind of a must to get as a trade. I just wish that DC would have planned it better. It shouldn't have been a backup. And unfortunately, this Justice League Dark title I think it would get more love if it wasn't if it wasn't associated with Bendis's Justice League. That I think the sales are terrible on that. But I guess we shall see. We'll see. This title deserves, this Justice League Dark deserves more love.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, up next we have Harley Quinn number 10, Thorns, from writer Stephanie Phillips. Art in this issue is by Laura Braga. Colors are by Arif Prianto. Letters by Darren Bennett. Finally, what all the Harley Ivy fans have been waiting for, the two of them back together after the events of Fear State. So what are your thoughts, Rocky?
Well, the first thing I gotta say is I'm glad it's a different interior artist here, and I say that with great respect to Riley Rosmo. I did get Riley Rosmo's art is on the cover of A, and I don't mean any disrespect to Riley Rosmo, because I've gotten accustomed to his style of art, and I think he has brought his own unique style to Harley Quinn. Having said that, I do think that this will make more Harley Quinn fans happy because it's a little bit more of a traditional comic book style. So the artist Laura Braga here, definitely brings some more familiarity, I think, with the characters. And this this issue starts right off with the character Keepsake ostensibly being killed by Hugo Strange because he wants Hugo Strange because he wants Hugo Strange to give him some information, or he's going to report Hugo Strange to the authorities and sort of like fess up. And Hugo Strange takes out Keepsake. Keepsake, of course, wanted to team up with. Keepsake was obsessed with the Joker, and he wanted Harley Quinn to team up with him and to be part of his own sort of team of, I guess, super villains, or here whatever he was calling them there. I forget what he calls them. He calls him his he has an interesting name for them here. I'll just bring it on the screen here. Sorry. God forbid I try to do more than one thing at once. But in any event, let me just jump to the chase here. Harley Quinn looks fantastic here. Laura Braga does a fantastic job. It's like she spent extra time on the pages with Harley Quinn and Ivy. There's a page here where Pamela Isley shows up at Harley Quinn's apartment, and she just looks fantastic. These both, and she even wants Harley to do her zipper up in the back. There's obviously there's some sexual innuendo here. These are gorgeous looking characters. This is honestly, it's hard to imagine Riley Rousmo drawing this scene because he just has exaggerated proportions, and sort of his particular style is not one that I would associate with sexual innuendo. Laura Braga here nails it, and I like writer Stephanie Phillips does a good job here of creating some tension between Harley and Ivy. The fact of the matter is Harley is on a sort of like a path of redemption herself, Harley. But Poison Ivy is not. Poison Ivy is still thinking in terms of the old ways. Poison Ivy just came off of having her two minds, the poison and the ivy part, just merged. And so Pamela wants to go back to being how they used to be. They used to be like, two of the three Gotham girls where they get into trouble, and Poison Ivy even wants to steal like a ruby, steal a diamond from a museum that they're at, and let's just run off and be together. We'll have all the money we need. But Harley's on a different quest. Harley's found herself. Harley feels that she's maybe found her type of calling, where she's on a path of redemption, and she's on a different life path now. And she tells Poison Ivy, she tells Pamela, you have to find your path. We'll always be together, but you leave, you go your own way, and then come back to me. You go and find your path like I've found mine. And it's really nice. It's really nice. And we also get Harley Quinn's sidekick, Kevin. He's on a date at the same museum with his new girlfriend Sam that we met in the previous 10 issues, and there's shenanigans arise, good dialogue. If you've been with this series so far, this is a nice payoff. This is a nice payoff, and this is I guarantee. Obviously, you mentioned it before. People are going to be picking up this issue because this is the issue that I think Stephanie Phillips have probably wanted to write out of more than any other, because she finally gets to get. They finally kiss. They get together at the end, and there's moments, and Pamela is Pamela, and Harley is Harley, and even Kevin has his moments. This all comes to a head, and it's really good to see. I think people are gonna really like this issue. If now being critical of it, I don't like Keepsake. Keepsake should be taken off the playing field. Keepsake is still alive. He should have been killed off. He's not a particularly interesting character. I'm not a big fan of Keepsake. Next issue is going to be Keepsake's Revenge. I think he's a one-note wonder. I don't think he's particularly original. I think he's kind of... I think we should move past Keepsake. I'm not a big fan of Keepsake. And I think that aspect of this issue it's a remnant of Fear State that I just wish would go away. But but for Harley and Poison Ivy fans, this is going to be an absolute must buy.
Yeah, I agree. People who love Harley and Ivy as a couple are definitely going to love this. I don't dislike them as a couple. I think they make a good couple. I think it makes sense. That being said, I'm not a big Harley fan, so whatever. It doesn't really make much sense. I wonder how much people who've been waiting for Harley and Ivy to get back together for so long, right? Like, it's the question that I saw Stephanie Phillips get asked more than anything when she was announced that she was going to start writing Harley. Like, as soon as that happened, well, when are you going to bring back Poison Ivy? Are you going to put them back together? Ever since Tom King sort of took Poison Ivy off the page in Heroes in Crisis, which people hated for various reasons, but that being one of them. Uh, like, when is she going to come back? When is she going to come back? And it's taken all this time. And then even when Poison Ivy came back, she came back in 2 halves, and now finally the halves are together. And even now, you finally think they're going to be together. You get to see them on the page, only to have Harley send Ivy away. So a bit anticlimactic. I don't know. Again, it doesn't bother me because I'm not invested in this relationship, but I just wonder if some people might take exception to it. The other thing that I wonder about, um, the fact that so Ivy rather hasn't really cared too much about typical robbery type crime in many years. So it didn't necessarily ring true to me that she wanted to steal this diamond. I mean, she's much more concerned these days with the environment and making sure people don't destroy plants, and they're taking care of the ecology and global warming and that sort of thing. So that was a little strange to me. I kept waiting for Poison Ivy to be like, I was just testing you, just wondering if you really had turned over a new leaf. So I thought that was a little strange. I sort of feel like there could have been a better way to send Ivy off, because I do agree that Ivy does need to go off and sort of discover who she is after this change of being reborn and then split into 2 halves and brought back together. So there's a lot to like here, but I just thought that was a little weird. I don't know. It didn't 100% work for me, but anyway, I do agree with you on the art. Laura Braga, beautiful art, fantastic. I wonder if she'll stay on the book for a while. I feel like she brings a lot to it. Although, like you said, that Riley Rosmos has kind of established his own sort of whimsy with the title, which obviously isn't there with the Braga art. So I don't know. You almost wish you had somebody that could sort of bring in the best aspects of the two, which I sort of feel like John Timms. Chad Harden obviously did that back in the day when Jimmy and Amanda were writing it. John Timms as well, but he's over on Superman Son of Kal-El right now, but I feel like he'd be a good choice as well to bring back on the title. All right, ready to move on to Robin number 9. This is from writer Joshua Williamson. Roger Cruz handles the pencils, Norm Ratman on inks, Luis Guerrero on colors, Troy Petrie on letters. Art first, Roger Cruz. So I don't know if he's the new regular artist on Robin, but he's on for a while, at least through the March solicits. What I like about his art is it's a little cleaner than what Gleb Melnikov does, but it has sort of that same energy that Gleb Melnikov has. So certainly in a trade or what have you, I don't think it will be as jarring. But I love this art. I like the Gleb Melnikov art, but the fact this is even a little cleaner, I think I like it even more. But again, that's just a personal preference, nothing against Gleb or anything. The colors are fantastic, really bright. I love the green that we get here in the Demon from Luis Guerrero. As far as the story goes, it's enjoyable, if not a little anticlimactic with what we were promised with the Lazarus Tournament. This Lazarus Tournament story from Joshua Williamson hasn't really been at all what we sort of expected or hoped. I talked about not even necessarily wanting to read the Robin title because I'm not a Damien fan. But then when we got this idea of maybe this sort of Enter the Dragon or kickboxer type of tournament fighting feel, that maybe it would be interesting. And that really hasn't been what it was until maybe the last couple of issues. But I do like sort of the twist that it's taken here, where the fighters have to team up to take on this demon. And then there's a twist at the end that also might be interesting. But we know that Damian has to come back to, so he gets transported into the past somehow by his grandmother. So what consequences that might have, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But he's not gonna be stuck back there long, because we know in only a couple of months he's got to be back in Gotham City for a crossover with the Batman and Deathstroke Incorporated titles. Um, so maybe just one more issue. I don't know, that would make sense in terms of the trade. Next issue, issue 10, would be the last issue of the second trade. It's entitled Back to the Future, I guess. So, um, yeah, interesting in terms of what Williamson has done in subverting expectations, but at the same time, and we've talked about this, about how we feel like he Williamson has sort of turned back the clock on some of the character growth and evolution of Damian. So I sort of feel like I don't even know who Damian is. Like, it's hinted at that he's grown and evolved and learned things throughout this story. And we get a little bit of it here when he asks for help, which isn't really a Damian thing to do. But I don't know if Williamson has gotten Damian back to where he was before in terms of maturity, or even surpassed that, because you would think after 9 issues of his own series, you would think he would hopefully be even, further along than he was when Williamson got a hold of the character, instead of turning back the clock. So I don't know if it'll be enough to make me care about the character in the long run anyway. So maybe I'm not the target audience for this one either. But I know you're a much bigger Damian fan than me, Rocky. So what do you think of this?
Well, I agree with you that, if I'm being really critical, I could say, well, what did Damian really learn here? Well, there's an entire sequence where Damian is taken out rather handily by the demon, because the demon has this almost like acidic like blood, and this demon is still in kind of a liquefied, semi-solid form, and the demon doesn't become completely physical until the demon can possess the body of Hawk, and of Connor Hawk. But he can never do that because Damian is preventing the demon from doing that. And then when he's incapacitated, Damian has a dream, and he hallucinates talking with Alfred. And then the big revelation, the big epiphany that Damian has is that he's got to, surprise, he's got to ask for help. Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, yeah, Damian is always, he's always kind of a loner. But on the other hand, he's led multiple teams before. I mean, Damian is very much a leader in many ways, or he's certainly done it in the past before. So that might be, not a big deal. I mean, so he finally asks for help. I think it takes away from the intelligence of everyone else. Did Ravager? I mean, Ravager made the comment saying, finally, when Damian steps up to the plate and organizes everybody to fight the demon. Like, why didn't Ravager do that? Like, did the rest of this entire group of fighters, are they all retarded? Are they stupid? Do they actually need Damian to tell them, by the way, you're all going to be killed, so maybe we should fight together? I mean, I get it. It's nice to have a leader, but did you really need Damian to basically, of all people, to rally the troops, so to speak? I mean, again, I'm sounding a little bit like an a-hole saying that, but the fact of the matter is, this is fun. If you're a Damian fan, this is actually Damian doing something heroic. He is asking for help. He's organizing the troops. It's cool to see everybody step up to the plate and fight the demon and defeat him. And I love the way they decapitate the demon. There's really great action sequences. Roger Cruz on the pencils. I think this is a guy to watch. This is excellent art. This is the type, there's something just visceral and action-packed about the art. Just really pops off the page. The coloring is great. Luis Guerrera on the colors is great. Norm Rapun's inks complement Roger Cruz's pencils very well. This is very well done. This is I even liked Respawn in this issue. I can't believe I'm saying that, but Respawn has a pretty cool moment where he wraps his chains around the demon, and everyone pulls the chains, and they work as a team to decapitate the demon. And then at the end, with Damian being sent in the past, where he meets a young Ra's al Ghul. That's interesting, because we'll probably learn more about the history of Ra's al Ghul. So moving forward, Joshua Williamson has set up what looks to be probably a fairly interesting story arc moving forward, and in a sort of a Back to the Future type of storyline moving forward. And maybe we'll even get some more. Since he's been sent back in time, you got to wonder, did Mother Soul do this on purpose? Mother Soul seemingly attacked him, and at first, he disappeared, and when his teammates probably think that he's been killed, but they probably don't know he's been sent back in time. Did Mother Soul send him back in time, or was this something that was out of Mother Soul's control? If he has been sent back in time at Mother Soul's intentions, then what's the purpose of sending him back in time? What secrets is he going to learn about? If he's sent back in time to meet a young Ra's al Ghul, he's going to meet a younger Mother Soul, because Mother Soul is, of course, Ra's al Ghul's mother. So the plot might continue to thicken here. So Joshua Williamson's done a good job here. This has been a fun comic, and this issue is probably the highlight. I think a lot of people are going to be happy with this issue, and it's got a very interesting cliffhanger, I think. So I'm definitely, I'm still on board, and I'll give credit what credit is due. I wasn't a big fan of Joshua Williamson's all of his comic book work, but he's won me over with this title.
Yeah, and like I said, we got that that crossover coming up. I think it's called Shadow War, which I don't know how much that ties in with Shadows of the Bat that's going on.
Yeah,
because he's writing Batman as well, but it ties in with the next book we're going to talk about. It ties in with his Batman book, ties in with his Robin book, and it ties in with this other book that he's writing. I guess that does make it easy to do a crossover when you're writing 3 books, right? I mean, he's writing Infinite or Justice League Incarnate right now. It was Infinite Frontier, now Justice League Incarnate. Makes it easy to cross over when you're just talking to yourself about what needs to go on. So, but not for a few months yet. This is Deathstroke Incorporated number 4 from the aforementioned Joshua Williamson, art by Howard Porter, colored by Hi-Fi, letters are by Steve Wands. And we know last issue ended with Black Canary talking to Deathstroke and basically, or Deathstroke eavesdropping on Black Canary, I should say, while Black Canary was talking to Oracle, and they were both wondering is Deathstroke out for his own good? Does he know Trust is not who they say they are? Is he aware that Libra is actually leading Trust? So a lot of mystery to be solved. What do you think of this one, Rock?
Well, the big player that was revealed the last issue was Libra, and I apologize because I butchered the name and the pronunciation. It's Libra. I kept saying Libra last time, but anyways, I believe it's the proper pronunciation is Libra. You said it right. I continue to say it wrong, but anyway. So Libra is a character that has worked with Darkseid in the past, leading into Final Crisis, Grant Morrison's Final Crisis, and for Libra now to suddenly make an appearance, this Juliet Ballantyne. It was Justin Ballantyne was the original Libra. This Juliet Ballantyne is now running Trust. Well, both Black Canary and Slade Wilson here, they're questioning each other's motives, and they're both questioning the true motives of Trust, the organization that they've been recruited to. And they've been, as Slade Wilson found out from the Cheetah last issue when he took out the Cheetah, that this is that Trust is basically Libra, and there's and even Black Canary discovered the costume of Libra, so with the scales and the balance. And so she knows that they're up to no good. She knows that they're usually that Libra is associated with the Society of Secret Villains, or Legion, of, whatever the case might be. And so she doesn't know what the hell's going on. Neither does Slade, and they don't trust each other. So, and understandably so. Joshua Williamson has done a good job here of making me. I can understand why Dinah Lance is suspicious of Slade Wilson, and I can understand why Slade Wilson is suspicious of Dinah Lance. And the way this all comes together is, in at least twice in this issue, I went from thinking, well, maybe Juliet Ballantyne is trying to balance the scales, but there's so much evil in the world, she wants to create more justice. There has to be more good. And there's a point in here where that it does appear to be the case. And then at one point, when Slade Wilson confronts Juliet Ballantyne, they get attacked by the Legion of Doom. And you think it's the Legion of Doom. There's this huge battle that ensues. It looks like Juliet Ballantyne is actually taken out, and mortally wounded, and she's saying her last gasps of life and talking to Dinah Lance about, please, I did this to sort of balance the scales against evil. And it ends up being one massive illusion by Dr. Destiny. And that Juliet Ballantyne is in fact Libra, and she is in fact kind of evil, but at the same time she talks about saving the multiverse. So it's clear, I think, that Libra is about Juliet Ballantyne, sorry. Juliet Ballantyne is Libra. She is about she's about balancing the scales, but she's prepared. I think she can flip-flop at any time, because it's not clear exactly what the agenda of Libra is, other than her goal is she feels that she needs to save the multiverse. And what she's doing, she's feeling that her feelings are that what she's doing as Libra, it's playing a role in what will ultimately save the multiverse. And because we know that Joshua Williamson, who's writing this title, is also writing Justice League Carnate, we know that Darkseid and all these other multiversal players, from Eclipso to the Gentry to all these other major players in the multiverse, are coming to try to get control of the crack of the multiverse, to try to take control and to control the multiverse. We know that now Libra she clearly wants to somehow balance the scales. How the hell she plans on doing that, because she seems to be a smaller player here on just one of the Earths, I'm not sure. But Libra ends up, or Dr. Destiny ends up transporting, it looks like, Black Canary and Slade Wilson to sort of like a ghost realm. And unfortunately, because everything was, Prometheus played a role and Dr. Destiny played a role in creating all these illusions, it looks as if Dinah, she intentionally used her sonic cry to take out Deathstroke when she thought that he was her enemy. And unfortunately, it might in fact have killed Deathstroke. And they end up ultimately in what appears to be some kind of ghost sector. And Black Canary fears that she kills him. But it looks like, because they're in a ghost sector, we know there's so many resurrections in the DC universe now, whether you're going to get resurrected either by Lazarus resin or Lazarus pills, or if you're fortunate enough to die in this ghost realm where they end up in the end of this issue, I guess. They're handing out resurrection like candy in the DC universe, I think. But in any event, it's curious to see exactly what is Libra's plan here. Why does she think, she says good and evil, that is the only way to save the multiverse, there must be balance. But how the hell Libra chooses or decides what she has to do to create that balance, I mean, that's anybody's guess. So this narrative could go anywhere. So I'm in for the long haul here. I'm having fun with this issue. The art's pretty good. I think it's still Howard Porter, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's working for me. I don't know. What do you think? Are you lost yet?
No. I mean, this is another one where it's like, wait, what's going on? Only because it wasn't. I mean, we had so many questions about who Trust was and who was behind it. And wait, now Trust. I mean, we found out last issue Trust is signing in with Libra, and Ballantyne. I think it was Eric Ballantyne, right? It was the original Libra, and now this is his sister, and she's Libra. And yeah, what the hell's going on? And then on top of everything, just when we think we know what's going on, the Legion of Doom shows up. And I was ready to be like, wait, what? How's the Legion of Doom showing up? They're disbanded. How is this even a thing? And then come to find out that it's not really the Legion of Doom, because it's all an illusion by Dr. Destiny, like you were saying. So yeah, it really confusing. But at the same time, when it was the Legion of Doom that showed up, that did all of a sudden give this entire series a different feel, much more traditionally super heroic. Because before it felt much more like the espionage corner of the DCU, right? Like the Leviathan, Argus, DEO corner, Trust, just another acronym and sort of behind the scenes and puppet mastering and what have you. And now all of a sudden we've got Gorilla Grodd and we've got Black Hand and we've got Lex Luthor. But no, never mind. That none of that was true. We actually have Prometheus and Dr. Destiny. So yeah, very very strange. And what exactly is this world that Black Canary got sent into, and we're hinted at that she's going to face Deathstroke's ghost next, and what is that going to do? And to your point earlier about, so is Libra actually, is Juliet Valentine a bad guy or a good guy? Clearly she's on her own side. She's talking about saving the multiverse, but just because you want to save the multiverse doesn't mean you're not out for your own best interests. So yeah, not a surprise to see Joshua Williamson take a more of a street level character like Deathstroke and tie it into multiverse and much bigger goings on with the sort of the bigger overall story that's being told in the DC universe. Because, like I mentioned, he's writing Justice League Incarnate as well. So why not have all your stuff tie in the best way? I'm still not sure, and I've said this before. I'm still not sure why this is called Deathstroke Incorporated, and not just Deathstroke, because it
Yeah,
is just Deathstroke. It is just Deathstroke. We know in Christopher Priest's Deathstroke run, he had Slade Wilson try to become a hero, and he had teammates, and it was much more of a Deathstroke Incorporated kind of thing. This is not that, so I'm not sure why it's called Deathstroke Incorporated when it's a Black Canary and Deathstroke story about how they're taking out Trust. So I don't know, but yeah, the Howard Porter art, like you said, is fantastic. Great color work as well by Hi-Fi that really sort of helps accentuate the big kinetic battle scenes that Porter's drawing here. So yeah, great job artistically. All right, up to the last book we're going to talk about. This is a Black Label book. It's from writer Jeff Lemire. We have Doug Mahnke on art, David Barron on color, Steve Wands on letters. It's called Swamp Thing Green Hell, and it's pretty damn good. It's telling this dystopian story of the future where I guess climate change got to the point where most of the world is underwater. We meet some scavengers, some people that are just trying to get along and survive as best they can, but there's different factions, and they sort of fight and sort of scrap over the few resources that are left. Meanwhile, the red, the black, and the green, or the blood, the rot, uh, and the I think it's still called the green, uh,
yeah,
or nature, what have you. The three sort of different aspects, of which have all had different avatars over time. They've decided that they want to wipe out the last dregs of humanity and completely start over, and so they create a new Swamp Thing to go after and kill the last few remnants of the world. And so a couple of the scavengers, a couple of the few people that are left, they go to talk to this mysterious man in the lighthouse. It's been hinted at throughout the issue, hinted at that he's not the best guy that you want to mess with, and is bad news. And so but they have no choice at this point. And who is it that inhabits the lighthouse? Who do you not want to have anything to do with, making a deal with the devil, as it were? But John Constantine himself, who calls back an old avatar of the green, very familiar. He calls back Alec Holland. So um, from the fantastic line work and detail of Doug Mahnke to the beautiful colors from David Barron, uh, this is just fantastic. As much as I've been enjoying what Rom V's been doing in the regular Swamp Thing title with uh, this new Swamp Thing Levi Kamei, man, there's just something about having Alec Holland as Swamp Thing that just works. And I don't even know that I noticed it, um, or realized I was missing it until it was brought back here by Jeff Lemire. So I mean, this is just great. I mean, the dialogue, the way Lemire, through very natural use of language, instead of these giant exposition boxes, through just natural, very natural sounding conversation between these different scavengers and their children or each other, he paints a picture of this world that's dystopian, and gives us so much context about what's going on and the struggles that they have in finding food and just surviving day to day. I mean, this is how it's done, right? This is how it's done, as opposed to all those Spawn comics that we've read recently. And nothing against those; they're very much of their time in the early '90s, where we just get these walls of text from Todd McFarlane with all this exposition to sort of explain how things are, as opposed to here where, like I said, through very sort of natural language from Jeff Lemire, we get all this context and information. So yeah, this is just awesome. It's so good. And I'm not even a Swamp Thing guy, and this could maybe be, granted we're only one issue in, so I won't say for sure, but this could be like my favorite Swamp Thing story I've ever read. It feels that way after a single issue already. That's how good it is. What did you think, Rocky?
I was gonna kick every time whenever John Constantine is rendered. He's always wearing the same trench coat, and he's a chronic smoker, and here when he finally makes an appearance, John Constantine makes his appearance, and it surprised me. I wasn't expecting John Constantine, which I suppose I should. I should have expected that the old man in the lighthouse was John Constantine, especially since John Constantine is obviously associated and originated with Swamp Thing. But
I thought it
I
was going to
was
be Alec. I thought it was going to be Alec Holland.
yeah, I didn't know who it was. I thought I was expecting some misdirection that might be an obscure DC hero of some. It could be anybody. I
Yeah.
literally was clued out. I didn't know but I didn't. I actually thought that this was so predictable that I wouldn't have guessed John Constantine. I don't mean that as an insult. This is good. I'm glad it's John Constantine. This is a good story. Uh, I like the way this mythology is being set up here. This starts off with just a young girl by the name of Veronica. Her father Donald is he obviously cares for his daughter. He wants to protect her, and they're sort of in an old fishing village. Clearly, it looks like the earth is slowly dying. The waters are rising. The earth is dying, and the green and the red and the rot seem to be in I don't know, like something is definitely out of sync. It's a lot of chaos is happening. The rot serves the green. It also serves the red, and the decisions are made by the avatars of the green and the red, that the green must purge the earth, and that you got to purge and destroy all of humanity to start all over again. We've seen this thing play out in multiple different types of Swamp Thing storylines, where the green, can be, and the red can obviously be potentially destructive to humanity. The idea that nature can start new by destroying the life now and then starting all over. So in that respect, that idea, that concept is not new. But where Jeff Lemire shines here as the writer is that it's the character work. It's just really good character work. I love the fact that this Donald character, his wife Sarah, ultimately it's revealed she ended up killing herself sometime in the past. But Sarah's got a brother who is sort of a member of another tribe or another group of people that keep raiding the island, and it's Sarah's brother that ends up being killed and becoming this new Swamp Thing. And so the mystery here is, at the end of this issue, is okay. So I thought that the Swamp Thing that appeared here clearly is an evil Swamp Thing. I thought this was Swamp Thing, because this series is called, it's called Green Hell. So Swamp Thing, I figured, might be the bad guy in this, because this is a Black Label story. I guess, well, maybe Swamp Thing is the bad guy in this. Swamp Thing, Green Hell. But yet Alec Holland comes back. It's John Constantine that calls upon Alec Holland, who appears at the end as the Swamp Thing. So if Alec Holland is back as the Swamp Thing to take on the Green, well, then who's the Swamp Thing? I guess there's a new Swamp Thing. I didn't know there could be two Swamp Things. I thought there could only be one avatar of the Green. So
Yeah, I thought so too.
yeah, so I'm a little bit confused, but maybe I've only really started to get into Swamp Thing thanks to Ram V's amazing run. So maybe there's more to the mythology of Swamp Thing that I'm not familiar with. But then again, this is Black Label. Jeff Lemire is at liberty to create whatever mythology he wants for Swamp Thing. So there's nothing that says that he's beholden to any particular iteration of the character. And I kind of like that, because this is all new to me, and this is an easy to follow narrative. It's easy to read. It's easy to get into. The art is fantastic. Doug Mankey on the art, his line weights are very different when he inks his own work here. Because usually he's got when he has other people ink his art, it looks different. This is This is not the type of look that I would associate with Doug Mankey's art. I think back to his Justice League Elite days and his Final Crisis compilation. His art there is different. I actually like this. I prefer this. This has more of a visceral feel to it, a more realistic feel to it, a more human
Yeah, the
feel.
line weights are lighter. I
Yeah,
feel like because I know exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes when other people ink him, the line weights are heavier, and it almost feels over rendered. To me, the way Ethan Van Sciver's work looks, it's too much. There's too much detail. It's
yeah.
distracting. It doesn't look real.
Yeah, but it works here. It works here for this, especially for setting the tone and the mood of this is because this is a horrific. This feels like end of the world stuff, end of the world apocalyptic events, and even with the father here, Donald sending his daughter off, saying, please run away. If I don't come back, keep running. Go north and keep running. And if I don't meet you at dawn, keep on going. Don't wait for me. But unfortunately, the daughter ends up being intercepted by old man George, who goes to the lighthouse where they end up meeting up with John Constantine, and they call upon Alec Holland Swamp Thing, and that's how the issue ends. So the great thing about this is I'm not a Swamp Thing expert at all. I found this easy to follow, easy to get into. I don't need to know. I don't know a lot about the rot or the green or the red, and I don't need to. This is just cool. When Alec Holland shows up, I don't know where the hell Alec Holland has been as the Swamp Thing. It's almost like he was on vacation and he resented John Constantine calling him. But I like this. I really enjoy this, and I'm really curious to see where this is going to go.
Yeah. The other thing is when John Constantine summons Alec Holland back, Alan Holland looks very much like we expect Swamp Thing to look, as opposed to Sarah's brother, like you mentioned, the brother-in-law of the main character. Uh, he's a much more sort of demonic looking Swamp Thing with all these different tentacles and whatnot. So that's a difference as well, and that
Yeah.
plays into the story very, very well. So yeah, fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it. Like you said, there are a few other DC books that I'll mention that are coming out this week. We've talked about all the regular issues, but there are a couple of collections. We've got Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters Saga Omnibus Volume 2 hardcover. That's the classic Mike Grell Green Arrow. We've got Batman Superman, the Archive of Worlds hardcover. That's the Gene Luen Yang Batman Superman that we love so much, with the fantastic art by Yvonne Reese. And then the Superman Red and Blue hardcover, which collects all the Superman Red and Blue stories that we spotlighted recently. So that's it for DC this week. What were your? I mean, no, you had several that you thought were fantastic, Rocky. If you had to pick one or two, maybe if it's a tie, favorite book DC book this week.
Ah, man, this is a tough one. I think in my heart of hearts, I really like Tom King's The Human Target. I really enjoyed that one. But the horror side of me, it's such a different feel of a comic. Swamp Thing Green Hell is really good too. But I'll go with The Human Target. Close second, Swamp Thing Green Hell, and I look. I got to give credit to. I'm enjoying DC versus Vampires and Action Comics with Mongol. I mean, overall, I quite enjoyed a good number of the issues this week, and even Deathstroke Task Force Z was good. Robin was fun. The majority of the comics I read this week, I enjoyed. I enjoyed, but I'll give it with the Human Target. Human Target. And I would encourage people listening, please go listen to the Comic Source podcast. Listen to the interview that Jace does with Tom King. It's it's very interesting. It's very revealing. One thing, you can say what you want about Tom King. I know that he's a divisive writer in some people's minds, but Tom King has a good, healthy dose of self-awareness. He knows what people say about him, and he's got a healthy sense of humor about it. And it's definitely always worth listening to his interview, especially when you're doing the asking the questions, Jace.
Great, appreciate that, Rocky. I too had the same top two as you did. You picked Human Target. I'll pick Swamp Thing. Green Hell as my favorite, just slightly beating out the Tom King Human Target. I wasn't sure which one I was going to choose, but the fact that you picked Human Target, I'll go the other way to balance it out. So yeah, I mean, those are the top two. But I'm glad you mentioned Task Force Z. I know you enjoyed Flash as well. So yeah, I mean,
Right.
overall pretty strong. I kind of feel like the two. I mean, don't get us wrong. Like the Teen Titans Academy book has had some issues throughout. We've mentioned them. Not that I don't think, and we've talked about this, that Tim Sheridan and his Sheridan verse don't have a lot of potential, but it's falling down a little bit in the execution. But for me, the two Aquaman books, the Deep Target and the Aquaman Becoming, were sort of the most confusing for me, which is why they're sort of a step down this week. But overall, very high quality. I mean, Superman 78 we thought was fantastic.
Mhm.
So yeah, Action Comics overall, really strong week to finish out the year. Obviously, we'll be back in the new year with more DC spotlights. So we'll see how that all plays out next year, and the daily Spawn episodes that we hope to kick off as well. So we hope you're all here for that. Just a quick reminder: if you are listening to us on the audio only, be sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe to Rocky's channel. It's Comic Space Boom ! Ring the notification bell, like this video, subscribe so you know when new content comes out. Conversely, if you always check us out on YouTube, be sure you head over to your favorite podcasting platform or application. Do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe there as well so you don't miss out on any of our audio content as well. So for the first time, I'll mention for you sort of best of people that like listicles and all that sort of thing. We have coming up in January is our other big episode, probably the episode I look forward to every year the most. I mean, there are really cool interviews that I get to do, and those may top them, but I never know, necessarily when those are going to happen. As opposed to every year in January, we always do our Best of the Comic Source Awards, and it's just such a fun time to be able to shout out comics that people may have missed and to give credit where credit's due to a lot of the creators that are working so hard to create these books that we love. So that'll be coming up as well. I think this year it's just going to be Rocky and I, so you guys may get away with less than a 2-hour 4-part episode to have all the books. Although no promises, even with just Rocky and I, we can go on as you guys all know. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Anything to add here at the end, Rock?
No, just happy holidays to everyone. It's been a good year, and come back and listen to our, in January for sure. We're going to be continuing to do the DC Weekly thing. We're going to be reviewing the Spawn issues. It's going to be an interesting year, and so yeah, well, bigger and better. We'll see.
Yep, exactly. So we appreciate you all joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.